Sasquatch and Holler. Please like and subscribe.
And hit that bell.
Hey, everybody. I see there's 11, 12, 13 people are coming in. Some of you been here a while. Thank y'all for coming in. This is the first show in a while. Hope I didn't forget how to ask questions. It's been a while and I missed it. I missed doing this. We have great guests and we got a surprise tonight. One of my last interviews I did was with Amanda Stowers, the Bigfoot Lady from TikTok. That's what we all know her by. Hey, Sharon, Billy, y'all, thank y'all for coming. But we're going to try something tonight. I asked Amanda if she would be a guest and help co-host. She can ask whatever questions she wants. She's going to help me out a little bit and be in chat, whatever. So, and then we've got Mr. William Lunsford. A lot of y'all know him. He had amazing stories, and I wanted to get him on. I saw him on several things, and then I saw Small Town Monster the other day, and I'm like, hey, I remember him. I remember some of the stories he was telling. I need to see if he'd come on, and he graciously accepted. So I'm going to interview. I'm going to bring in Miss Amanda to the backstage here or onto the stage. Hello, Amanda.
Hey, y'all. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for stopping by. I asked her to come on with us, and she agreed. We thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, definitely sounds like something fun. I really, really enjoyed our conversation when you interviewed me. So when you asked me to come and join you, I was like, heck yeah, let's do this. This sounds like fun.
Give us something to do on a Tuesday night.
Right.
And we got people rolling in. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and y'all, I told her backstage, I said, your live that we did was the third most popular. The second one was not many more views than hers, but it's kind of unfair because the most popular one is the 6-hour marathon we did, and that kind of lets YouTube advertise more. So I think they pushed that one a little bit. So that one's unfair. So everybody loved you. Your sense of humor and your way of thinking, and I believe you asked me a few questions also. But so, well, there's Mr. Shane. I believe I remember that name from last time. Hello, Shane. Thank you for letting me borrow your wife here.
Don't believe anything he says, I promise.
Hey, we're
I'm teasing.
Well, here we take the subject seriously. We don't take ourselves too seriously.
That is very true. Absolutely.
Well, tell everybody right quick where you work and what you do.
So for those who didn't see my episode that I had with Roger a while back, my name is Amanda Stowers. I go by the Bigfoot Lady on my TikTok and all my other social media. And I happen to have the best job in the world. And I am a museum interpreter and cashier at the Expedition Bigfoot Museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia here. It's owned by David and Melinda Becerra. It's been open since 2016. And they have the claim to fame of being the largest Bigfoot museum in the United States. And it is an awesome job. It's, like I said, literally a dream. I get to not only work with the public and help teach, people and children and everything, about the subject matter that is Bigfoot, but I also get to, be in a perfect place where I can, talk to people and, you know, share knowledge and talk to witnesses all the time. It's fantastic.
It's that, you know, we could do probably 10 more shows on just people have what stories they've shared.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
y'all, we're gonna try to make this work. I think it's gonna be easy because we got got a great guest here. He gets excited like I do talking about this stuff. It seems like, and we're gonna bring in Mr. William. Hold on, let's see if we can get him there. Hey, look there, he's on the bottom.
Here he goes.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great, everybody. How are y'all doing? Good to be here with you.
Hey, we appreciate it. I haven't done a show in a long time, and didn't think of a better way to kick it off with you two here. So, I guess we got about 30 in chat right now, and there'll be a lot more later. But hey, everybody, I won't be able to put everybody up here. Katie G, Blondes and Booze. There's Wendell, Kenneth, Sharon, and a lot more. Well, we're gonna get right to it. Now, I had told Mr. Lunsford in backstage that when I hear a good story, a lot of times I turn it off immediately because I want when we do live, I want to hear it for the first time. I have heard some of his, and we got Jeremiah just stopped in here. I believe you know him, Amanda.
Yes, I do. What's up, buddy?
So hey, Jeremiah, y'all. He does a good job with his Bigfoot stuff, but that's a good guy right there. I promise you. So we, you know, for the people that's watching this for the first time, because I haven't done a show in a while, I'm here because I'm a knower. I didn't ask to be. Amanda's a knower. She had something happen to her years ago, and Mr. Lunsford was just out fishing one day, doing what I was doing, looking at nature and just enjoying the outside. Could you walk us through that? Well, let me ask you this:
Sure.
before you saw the first one, you living in the area you live in, close to Fouke, Arkansas, with all the legends, with the movie, with all of that, what was your take on that? Was it just the boogeyman type stories to you, or how did that work with you being so close to that?
Well, I used to fish a bunch of gravel pits. I used to fish Sulphur River with my dad down around that area right there. So it came out in 1971. That was about the time that I was about the 6th grade, I guess, when it came out through there. And of course, I'd always ask my dad. My dad was part Indian, and he knew a little bit of something about everything. And, you know, I'd talk to him about that right there. And he said, well, son, there's a lot of ththings we don't know about. I think it was more or less he did not want to scare me rather than anything else. So I just kind of accepted that right there. And that there were things there that, you know, dads are pretty good about. There's things that kids don't need to know, you know. And so I just kind of, being a pretty wise kid, I'm like, well, maybe that's something there that, you know, we can talk about later on. But living here close by, like I said, I'm probably about 18 miles from Fouke, Arkansas. And so it really, at the time, it didn't affect me much, except for keeping me looking around when I was down at the river fishing, you know, and things like that. But that's a kid for you, you know. Yeah. And but it was real because if you've ever been to, have either anybody there in the audience or y'all ever been down here to Sulphur River or down to Fouke or anything, because when you look at it, it doesn't just look like the land that time forgot. It looks like the land that time never knew. I mean, it's really thick. I heard James Fay on Finding Bigfoot when they came down here on a show called Return to Boggy Creek. He said, man, that thing is so thick you can hide an elephant in there. Well, that's exactly right. And my dad had a friend there who was a safari hunter over in Africa. And so my dad was telling him about these things that were going on. And he said, man, if somebody told me if they saw anything from a tiger to Tarzan there on the banks of Sulphur River, he said, I would believe it. So it's really, really something when you go down there and you look at the area and you'd expect a Bigfoot to step from behind any tree there at that time. So like I said, at that time, like I said, being in the 6th and 7th grade, it didn't really affect me as much as it did whenever I became more mature. But then I became more mature, and maturity tends to bring with it an air of, I know a little bit about everything in the world, know most everything about the world. So I thought, and you know, my parents wouldn't let me believe in a monster. I was raised a Christian and happy to be that way. And so I knew they weren't going to let me believe in a monster if it wasn't true. So I just kind of dismissed that. But we lived on a place called South State Line. South State Line is about 3 miles north of Sulphur River, where it flows through there. It just ends up dead ending. The road ends up down there, dead ending in the river. And so we were there living. We lived on a farm, and we would hear creatures down there at night. Of course, we had foxes, we had coyotes, we had some other things. But then every now and then you would hear some things you just couldn't, put your finger on. And so at that time right there, and then one time we had a man named Mr. Otis, and he came one day, and he used to drive a mule with a wagon, and he would bring produce to the different houses down there, which is probably about a 3 mile ride down there in that wagon. One night he comes up there, and I hear that mule running, and you can hear the thing creaking, you can hear the squeaking of the wheels, and he pulls up there and pulls that deal and sits up there, and he comes banging on the door. And I guess I was probably about 7 or 8 years old at that time, but I'd known Mr. Otis well. And he comes up there banging on the door, and usually, there's a lot of small talk. Well, this time there wasn't. I said, "Hey, Mr. Otis." He goes, "Where's Mr. Bob? Where's Mr. Bob?" Bob was my dad. And I said, "Well, he's in there." Mama came to the door, and she goes, "Well, hey, Otis." And he goes, "Where's Mr. Bob at? Is he here?" And so she went and got him, and sure enough, he told us his story. As he was riding down towards where we lived out there, going to the Sulphur River, one of these things jumped up on the road and hollered at him. The mule's name was Roscoe. Hollered at him and Roscoe took off for a run. They said it took him probably a mile to get him stopped. Mm-hmm. And so when he finally did, and like I said, in our house, he knew that my dad and mom, we're very accommodating with everybody as far as that goes. And so, but my dad had a gun, and so he wanted to know if my dad would take his gun and then get in the car and follow him back with his headlights because he's afraid to go back. So he did, and like I said, that was one of the first things we knew that, hey, there's something down here that's a little bit different, But still, it wasn't something that I let worry me or anything like that. We'd sit out there at night on the porch after we got through doing our chores there at the farm, and we'd hear these things holler. There were 2 railroad tracks behind us, and at times the volume for the screaming was just as much as it was with the whistles on the railroad tracks. And it seemed like the train whistles would at times set this thing off. So they were like, just having, "I'm boss of the woods." No, not quite. "Well, I'm boss of the tracks. Well, let's go." So you would hear the imagery. It was amazing. And again, so like I said, as I got older and we left the farm, we came back to town. And my dad passed away when I was 12 there. So these gravel pits and river used to fish. Once I got a vehicle, I used to go down there, being familiar with it and everything like that, and loving to fish as I did, and it was free. So I would be down there just about every day after school. I was an athlete, and every time I had any spare time, I was there. I was at the river or at the gravel pits. And so I was 17 years old, and I was just fixing to graduate, and it was in the spring, and I was a teacher's aide for my coach, and he was a cool guy. And of course, I'd already taken enough courses that I could only go to school half a day, but at that time the school wouldn't allow it, so I had to have like 3 periods of study hall. Well, I'd take 1 period of study hall for him. I grade papers. The next period, he and I would go into the gym and we'd pump iron together. He was big time in athletics, and so was I. And so then after that, wasn't anything else to do. He said, "Well, we'll go ahead, and he said, "I'll see you tomorrow." So I get to leave school about an hour early. I felt privileged. But I spent most of that time driving down to those gravel pits, loving the bass fish. If anybody bass fishes, you know how addictive that is. That's about as bad as Bigfoot hunting. And but since I've gotten older, it's not quite as bad. As you said, I've got a passion for this stuff because I have seen so many and had so many experiences and have been able to turn other people onto this deal of Bigfoot. So again, I'm down there, and I go down there that day, and man, I can't wait to get me a Mountain Dew and Reese's Cup, and I head down towards the gravel pits there in Parton. I have probably a good half-mile walk till I'm to my first gravel pit down there, man. Catch a bass just almost immediately about 3 pounds, and I'm feeling good, man. Like I said, that's my element at that time right there. I said football season was over with. I was fixing to go play college football, and so I really enjoy getting to do this. So I'm down there this one day, and I began to notice a lot of carcasses there. Walking down this gas line where these gravel pits were. And of course, you don't think much about that because you got, a lot of quote road kill, field kill, or whatever it is like that. And so, you get used to it. Like I said, we had these rabbits that looked almost like dogs. I mean, they were just so big, we called them swamp jacks, big old jackrabbits. And like I said, they're more of a hare than actually rabbits. Hare is actually bigger than that. And so I was down there this one day. And so whenever I was there, I kept noticing this crazy, crazy smell. And I'm like, gosh, man, and boy, it was rancid. And I thought, what is that? I'd never actually smelled anything of all the roadkill that had been warmed by the sun or anything else too, or the field kill. Never smelled anything like that. And it kind of made me uneasy. But then I'm like, that's just your imagination, or that's just something that you hadn't experienced yet. Well, I had been down to these pits about a week and a half before, and I had been to the other end of this gas line to park my vehicle, and this was a little bit closer for me to go. And I lost one of my favorite lures, so I went back to get it that day. So whenever I did, I walked back in through there, and as I was walking back, then I got my lure, came back real quick. As I'm walking back down this gas line, I hear something begin to pace me over there on the side of the side of the woods there, and I couldn't see it, and by the time I get down there, it's probably about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, but still it's springtime, and so you don't have you got some daylight, but not like what you're going to have later on. And so I hear this thing pace me, and I stop. Well, when I stop, I hear about 2 extra steps, and it stops. And I thought, that's just sparrows over there bouncing around, in the leaves and stuff like that, or else, it could be an armadillo. Armadillos can make quite a bit of noise. They can scare you to death too. So I just blew it off. So I kept on, started walking back. Pretty soon I heard it beside me again. I'm like, man, that's kind of strange to hear something like that to be right there on my side after I had just left it. So anyway, I stopped again. I looked over there, and I kind of figured it might be some of my buddies who knew that I bass fished every day down there. They were kind of jealous because I'd be out of school and they wouldn't be. And I finally hollered out, hey, I know you're over there. You're not scaring me, so you just may as well go on. So I sit there and stare into the woods, man. I see nothing, I hear nothing else. It's not moving. I take off walking back down here towards the creek. Well, whenever I do, this thing gets beside me again relatively quick. Then I realize whatever it is paying me some attention. I'm the whole subject of its focus. And the way it had caught up so quick, I thought, well, so I just decided to jog just a little bit. So I started jogging down towards the creek. And when I did, pretty soon, it's boom, 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 he's beside me, whatever it is. I actually, like I said, at the time, did not believe in that. I actually thought it could be a coyote. We have bears. We have panthers. Either one of them would have been a bad scenario, but still, I wasn't thinking Bigfoot. Well, so I take off then on a dead run to get down to the creek. And when I get to the creek there, I have to take one trail going to the woods. And whenever I get into that trail right there, I get maybe just 2 or 3 steps off that gas line. That thing just blares me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I knew it wasn't a bear. I knew panthers, knew what they sound like. They tend to say, like the cliche is a woman screaming. They do. It's that kind of scream. This was not that right there. I mean, it was coming all the way from his toes all the way up through his lungs. And man, I took off. I had a little ford there. The only place I could cross the creek, cross those rocks there, which would get my feet wet, jump back up and get to my vehicle. There's nothing there. I'm like, well, whatever that was, you just dodged a bullet, So I wasn't old enough to buy a gun. So whenever I got in, I took my fishing pole back and then to my house, and I went and bought me a Bowie knife. So I figured, well, yeah, I'm, of course, I'm 17 and bulletproof, fixed play college football, pretty good sized guy, I'm pretty strong. Wasn't scared of anything. Of course, you gonna mess up my fishing, we're gonna have a fight anyway, So anyway, I just kind of let it go with that right there. So whenever I come back, then this day here that I'm out of school right there, I start smelling that smell as I had smelled before. On the day that I was down there, and I'm like, what in the world is that? Well, I got down to a place there where you cross this gas line, and we call it the crossroads. And if you got down the crossroads, if you would look down there, we didn't have very many deer down there, but if they were there, they would be down there on the edge of that trail. So I stopped and I looked, and there wasn't anything there in the crossroads. And I thought, man, something's not right about this, but I'm not thinking anything about it. I go ahead and start the crossroads, and then I stopped. Something just wasn't right. And so I sit there and I looked and looked and looked, and I'm like, man, your imagination's running wild with you. This happened to you last week, and you're kind of having some extra freeze right there from what you should have had last week. So I kept on going, walked up there again, got real close to the edge. I stopped again. I said there was just something wasn't right. I was starting to get my hair was standing up on the back of my neck, and I thought, then I had 2 more gravel pits to get to, and I wanted to get to them. That was really kind of obsessing me right now as far as my mind, because I didn't have much time. Those are the ones that generally had the biggest bass in it. So I started to walk down this trail from after I'd sit there and been standing there staring down this road there. And whenever I did, I see this thing on the left side of the road over there. And he's kind of squatted down behind the tree. Well, it begins to move. And when it begins to move, all of a sudden it stands up. And this dude in his left hand had a bush pulled down in front of his face, and it had it wrapped around like this. It wasn't wrapped around like this. It was wrapped around like this. And the first thing I see is that hand going up. It gets to a certain spot. The limb goes to the place, or the bush goes to the place where it's supposed to. He continues to stand up. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? I'm thinking bear. you know, because bears were rare there around Sulphur River, you know, and when they stand up, they can get pretty good size. And I thought, well, man, how tall is this guy going to get? Well, buddy, all of a sudden he does, and he gets there and he walks out in front of the road in front of me. There's nothing between he and I, but just grass and air. And I'm sitting there looking. Here's this big, giant black animal. The only thing I could compare it to at the time, like I said, was Andre the Giant, the wrestler. I mean, and that dude was wide. Like I said, it was tall. It had the imposing look to him. It's almost like he was posturing to me, and he began to sit there, and he just started watching me and doing this back and forth like that. And I'm like, oh, good grateful. Folks, I immediately knew that was something that I wasn't familiar with. I tried to put it in a pigeonhole. Like I said, bear, no. Sloth, no. Knew it wasn't any one of my buddies doing anything else like that. And finally, it clicked to me, even though I had never seen it before. If there was such thing as a Fouke Monster, this is him. So he's sitting there looking at me, and I'm like, this is how I'm going to die right here. So I just stand there. And again, like I said, he's almost posturing to me like, don't come down here, which he did not have to worry about. But we're sitting there, you know, and we're sitting there kind of staring at each other. And, you know, he's still doing that deal right there. And so finally he turns around, he walks back to the very same tree that he was under whenever I got there. He pulled the same limb down, and he put the limbs in his mouth. And that's what we down here, we call skin the cat, pulled all the leaves off there right there. He sits there and chews for a minute. Then he walks out in front of me again, and then he stops. And when he does, I'm like, this is going to be it. And, you know, I tell everybody, I remember thinking that, you know, I was praying for real. And I said, Lord, if you don't help me, just don't help him. You know, let him find my body, you know, take care of my mom. And so again, he sits there and he's looking, and like I said, you can see almost about that time, just about the sun was behind the trees, but his face kind of wrinkled. I don't know if it's because of the sun or just because, like I said, I call it posturing to me. It's more like he was posturing to me. And all of a sudden he just takes a step like he's going forward. And when he does, he wheels on that left leg. And in 2 steps, he's off that road. And the 3rd step, he's in that heavy, thick brush. Well, I couldn't see him. I couldn't hear him. But the thing is, I couldn't run. I wanted to. I was aware that I was in grave, grave danger, but I could not run. And being the experienced Bigfooter that I am right now, I believe firmly that it was called infrasound. They can use infrasound. They have it. You know, tigers have it. Other animals have it. But it makes you catatonic. And they've actually experimented with it in the military and things, so that, you know, at that time to help our soldiers get a quote early bead on whoever their enemy is. And so I'm sitting down there and I can't move. And finally my bearings started coming back to me, and I'm like, buddy, this is your time. If you're going to do it, you better do it. Well, I used to be a miler for the track team. And I thought, I'm either going to take off down this road back towards my truck, or else towards my vehicle. It was actually a hatchback Datsun rather than a truck. And then also had gravel pits, and I was a good swimmer. I was either going to dive into the pits if he came after me and go underwater, try to get away, or else I was going to try to keep running. And so when I got down there, I started running. Man, I looked around. I've got a rod and reel in my hand. I had already had my knife out, like I had told y'all about, that I had went and bought. And of course, one of the first things my mama told me, son, don't ever run with that knife. Well, the knife was not going back in the sheath until. So I'm running with this knife. I've got my rod and reel. Like I said, I'm running down the edge of this gas line. He's not chasing me yet, but I'm figuring he is somewhere. There was woods across the gas line. I figure he's going down that line of woods and going to surprise me where we get down to where I have to take these roads. So I just keep running. Like I said, keep looking back, nothing there. I come back, I take the road, and I had, by that time I was fixing to jump across what's called 4 Mile Creek right there. I just shid my knife into my shiv there, and then I jumped across. Again, ran straight up, never even broke stride, didn't get my feet wet, ran across an open field that used to be a garbage dump that they had covered up there. So it's all, I guess you could call it a landfill, whatever. And so I go to running down this road, and this road is dark because of the canopy of trees in the time of day. And I'm like, man, if he's going to get you, he's going to get you here. So, man, I'm flying. And I was a good miler, and I was pretty fast. I was probably about a 800-yard dash at that time, so I could still go. But I didn't know if I had that kind of endurance, you know, with something after me like that. And, man, like I said, I was really just praying. So I get to the gate, man, I throw my rod and reel, knife, and everything else over the gate, and I dived through. It was made of grill stem pipe, and it had like one of these designs on it right there. I just dove through there, already had my keys out, jumped up, opened my door, started my vehicle, taking inventory of myself. I realized I'm crying. Like I said, I've got tears all in my eyes. They're all over my cheeks and my face. I'm flustered. And I got my vehicle started. I look over there, and there's my tackle and my knife sitting right outside the gate. I'm like, oh, crap. Well, the tackle been given to me by somebody that was real special to me at the time. Another friend of mine there for graduation had given me the reel, which it was real expensive. And I'm a pretty sentimental guy. And I'm like, I'm not going to leave that there. And the look, of course, I would if Bigfoot really wanted it, was his. But I looked around and didn't see it. Didn't see the Bigfoot. So I drove up there. I didn't get out. I just drove up there, got it, threw it inside of my passenger side door. And so I head back to Texarkana, which for that deal is probably about 14 miles from where I am. So, man, I make it home. If he would have ran out in front of me, I'd have died with a heart attack. I truly would have. I was hyperventilating, and I couldn't breathe. Like I said, I was, like you do when you're crying.
Well, how old were you at the time?
17.
17.
17.
Go ahead, Amanda.
No,
I was just commenting. I was just like, this is just it's crazy. Your story.
Yeah,
this is the first time I've actually heard it in full. As I'm listening to you, I actually realize now that I recognize your voice because Roger had mentioned that you were in one of the Small Town Monsters documentaries, the Fouke Monster. And in the lobby of the museum where I work, they actually have the trailers for a lot of those on repeat throughout the day. And as you started talking, and as soon as you said the word crossroads, I recognized your voice from that. And I'm like, oh, this is that story. I was actually been meaning to go and watch that documentary again because it's been years since I've watched it. Right. And just so I can refresh on all these things because, customers ask me about them and stuff.
I've got a friend that's actually been to y'all's museum. One of my research partners named Randy Crawford has been to y'all's museum. He said, man, you've got to go sometime, which is on my bucket list. I want to come down there. And Randy's been there a couple times, and he's really raved about how good it is. So, folks, if y'all haven't been there, do go. I actually recommended this week to a friend of mine named Phoebe Haynes. And she's going to take a trip to Georgia there pretty soon. And so she's going to take it down to there and hopefully her family go down there and see it. So I've heard it's really awesome.
And we got to go through.
Yeah, the Fouke stuff is on my bucket list too. Hopefully I can make it out there. I want to do the famous squatching thing and have my picture taken by the road sign.
There you go.
On it.
And that thing about that right there, Fouke is just I call it the Mecca of Bigfooting in America. Yeah, you can talk about Bluff Creek all you want to, but man, Fouke actually put. Not everybody was a believer at that time. This story of the Fouke Monster was so real. Anybody that ever had an aunt, uncle, grandma, or lived in the country realized this was happening to everyday folks. In Normalsville, America, like I write about. And if it could happen to them, it could happen to you. So it really kind of struck a chord there amongst most people in America. Like, gosh, these guys are telling the truth. And if you hear the rest of the story, if you look on back of that deal, with matter of fact, it's called Boggy Creek Monsters by Seth Breedlove and Small Town Monsters. You look on the back, you'll see me and Lyle Blackburn there, and it's still there on the back there. And we're talking about, my encounter right there. So, but Seth does real good work with Small Town Monsters, and he's very, very inventive, good guys around him helping out cameramen, and the guys that write the stories, the music there with Boggy Creek Monsters. So very privileged to be in that. And the other people that are in there, I got to know everybody else that's in that deal. Keith Crabtree, the guy who played the monster in the original movie, is one of my research partners. And so very blessed by him because Keith knows everybody and everybody knows him. And Keith is also about did pyromedic. Keith is a guy where you can look around and see where the crowd is because Keith's about 6'7", and you can see where Keith is regardless, But he's also just a real good man. And so the other people I've been around there like that through that. But I got to know all these people and know their stories. I've been to some of their homes. And man, the things that we share. Another thing that we share is whenever you see when we're telling these stories, and they're stories on in the loose sense of the term. They're not lie stories, they're stories. But you can see in each one of us, you can see the emotion that comes back up. And matter of fact, I was there fixing to do a hand operation in Little Rock, Arkansas. And the lady that was doing my blood pressure, she saw me. I had a Bigfoot book that I was reading. And so she goes, Bigfoot, Texarkana. Oh, how far is that from Fouke? I said, oh, it's about 20 miles. And she goes, have you ever seen the creature? I said, oh, yeah. She goes, well, why don't you tell me about it? So she's sitting there, and she's pumping up this blood pressure deal. Well, instead of like 137 over 80 or 85, I can't remember what it was right there, but it's 137 over. All of a sudden, man, my blood pressure goes 204 over 96.
Oh, my
goodness. I'm telling the story. They call stroke alert. They think I'm fixing to have a stroke. My wife goes, he ain't having no stroke. He said every time he thinks about this and tells that story, he hyperventilates, he cries, and said that's what's happening. So just to be sure, they wait a little while, and I had the stroke alert team ready. Then I got down about 167, I think, over 80, something like that. And it finally got down to something acceptable so that I could have my surgery done right there. But it still affects me, and it affects other people the same way. And
Mr. Lunsford,
go ahead, bud.
Can I interrupt you a second?
Call me Will.
Well, I've got a couple things here. Now, I've got to do a show with somebody a month from now, approximately, and I made a comment in their chat that everybody gives descriptions of what they look like. They give, like I did, what happened, what it looked like, why, but we never talk about how it makes you feel. And you just brought that up. And I know Amanda was surprised. You had one looking at you, didn't you? Y'all were kind of having a stare down. Is that right?
Yes and no. I've had, and also this is for Will as well. I've had two experiences. One where I just heard it, and now I know as an adult that I was zapped with infrasound.
Right, exactly.
I didn't actually see the creature. My brother, who was with me, did, and which is funny. Like I said, is bringing these back up as you're describing how you were running with your knife, and your parents told you never to run with your knife. That's what my brother did. He had a pocket knife with him, and when he switched that flip blade out and started taking off running, I knew it was bad news. But yes, my second encounter, I did see it, but it was in an odd position, and it was laying down, all flat on its belly, so that was very odd. But yeah, everything that you're just talking about and describing goes hand in hand with exactly what we see there at the museum all the time. You said when you're talking face to face with somebody, and I do. Roger is telling me this. I get excited, and I know that I do. And I'll be talking with somebody, and they're sharing their experience, and they're sharing something with me, and in my mind's already goes like, I've heard that before, or this is something new I've never heard. This goes more into the woo stuff. This is very fascinating. I want to listen in on this, and I have to try to control my face. But then at the same time, I'm looking at this person, and I'm realizing that, they are reliving that moment as they're sharing it. Same way that all of us relive that exact moment whenever we share our experiences with everybody else. Right. Especially once they get into more, you go down into the deep details, and, you like you said, you see the sweat on their face, you see the goosebumps on their arms. You'll look at, David taught me this too, to look at the people beside them, like, if their wife or their son or whatever, is there with them, are they chuckling over in the corner, are they they're pulling a big one over me, or are they like, is the wife, the opposite is, she's like soothing them, or the kids are in the background like, I dare you to say anything bad about my grandpa, he's telling the truth, kind of look on their faces. So
it's really
emotions is something, like I said, that people don't bring up as often as they should, and I think that's definitely a big factor in the Bigfoot world, for lack of better terminology, with experiencers.
Here's another thing too that folks have never seen. If you've got somebody that's with this person and the other person starts finishing their sentences, they're telling the truth. I've done this with several people, and the other person can't hardly wait to get in there because they're so excited about what you've experienced, and they've been there with. I've been married to my wife for 43 years, and there'll be times that I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll be crying, and my wife will shake me and wake me up. She goes, "You're either dreaming about your daddy dying, or else you're dreaming about Bigfoot. Which was it?" And it'll be one of those two. So she's actually got it down as far as that.
Yeah.
So it's just really but it really does affect you in that way right there. And so, and folks also here with the chat, I see some of you commenting, but I can't see it from there. But if y'all want to talk to me, thank you that Sharon. I appreciate that. If y'all want to talk to me, write some questions later on and I'll answer them, or else you can just get in touch with me on Facebook Messenger and I'll try to answer them too as well. But it's not an intentional slight from anybody. It's just like my computer just doesn't have that capability. But so it was really, and I saw my next one then in 1985, and that was 8 years later, and it was about 5 miles down the road on a place called Mercer Bayou, which is about this place was probably 1.5 miles from Sulphur River where it crossed there on the road. And so he was there. Good. Do what?
You changed fishing spots. That sounds like what I did. Change one spot. Sorry.
I'm telling you, man, it's one of these things that you don't expect to happen the first time. You
Right.
sure don't expect it to happen the second time. I tell people lightning wasn't going to strike twice. I got news for you. Lightning strikes as many times as it wants to with Bigfoot. And one thing about there's Spencer, a good guy. I love old Spencer, man. And I appreciate the nice words everybody has said too as well. But yeah, you're not going to be able to choreograph a sighting of Bigfoot. He's going to show up, but you're not going to determine how it goes. He is. And so you just have to kind of flow through it. But I was there in 1985, had my nephew with me. I was down in a place called Mercer Bayou, had a new boat, and we'd been fishing. I was all excited. And we'd come in and went all the way to the end, and I didn't know how long it would take to get back. So I come back, and I'm about 30 minutes after dark. So we get the boat. I go get the truck, and he holds onto the boat there on the ramp, and then I go get the truck and back it down. We're laughing, having a big time. We caught a lot of bass, and it's hard not to have a good time. We've been fishing like that, especially because my nephew's 8 years old. To see the excitement kids have, you see every tooth in his head every time he caught a fish, But we're sitting there, and as we're putting the boat on the trailer, all of a sudden this same thing is over there in the corner of the boat ramp. I couldn't see him because it was black. And over in the parking lot, corner of the parking lot where the boat ramp is. And this joker screamed, and I knew the scream exactly from the first time from 8 years ago. And I told him, I said, Chris, get in the truck. And he goes, what? I said, get in the truck. And he goes, what? I said, get in the truck.
Don't ask questions.
Exactly. Don't argue with me, son.
Just get in the truck. And so he gets in the truck. I don't even tie my boat down. My boat was my pride and joy. If it's a Queen Mary, I couldn't have been any more proud of what it was. And it was just a little, stunt jumper. But I got up there and we drove up there about a mile, and I finally tied my boat down. When I got out, he goes, "You're gonna get out, are you?" I said, "I'll be fine. You just stay in the truck." Well, I knew right then that where these things, all the stories I'd heard more stories. Like I said, as a UPS driver, I had for 35 years, I'd heard of a lot of stories from the people who lived around there. I'd heard a lot of stories from the people who I actually had talked to down there fishing. And so I knew that the stories were true, and that the area that I was in and I was going to fish, if I was going to do that, I was going to have to learn more about them. So I had tried to before. I had went to all the card catalogs in my library and everything, read everything I could. But back in 1977, there just wasn't a whole lot, even about Patty, back then. But then by the time in 1985 came around, there was a little bit more. And so I would do some substitute teaching on some of my days off. And so I'd go to the library, had access to the card catalog. I'd read everything I could. And because, again, that's led to, if anybody wants to say passionate, some people want to try to be, crude and critical and say it's obsession. I don't care what you call it. I'm passionate about it. But I've also had 2 encounters that could have turned really, really ugly, really, really quick. And those right there tend to hook you. And I had one, I was with my dog, and the other one was with my wife and son. And one comes, and they come charging on us in the middle of the night. And I had to draw a weapon on him and have my spotlight on him, and they're just. Can I read this right quick? I had him throwing a fit and working themselves up. Yes, I've had boogers do that to me. Yes, I have. I have one about 3 years ago that did that. Got himself. I had been there like 3 days before, and everything was fine. I heard him run down the holler there. Coincidentally here, Squatch and holler. I had him run down my Squatch and holler. You heard him over there walking around. Wasn't anything about it. He took off, went back up the hill, and everything was fine. So I come back a couple days later to reset my camera, and when I do, and whatever reason it was, I got down there, and he was not happy with me, or it wasn't happy with me, whatever it was, and man, it started throwing a fit just like you talk about. And it would do that mess like that right there, and then it would walk around, and it would shake the bushes and jump. Finally, I started backing up. I pulled both my pistols out of my pocket, and I started backing up. I've never had them act like that with me before. And whatever it was, I don't know if it was right now. This is my theory. It's mating season, or not mating. It's actually birthing season right now. We see a lot of baby Bigfoots right now during late December and then early January. And I think during that time, it was probably during a time where they might have been breeding or whatever it was. There could have been babies around. But it was not happy with me being there. Then the one that was there that night, like I said, it was during the springtime, and I think he might have been Twitter played. Stacy Brown. I talked to Stacy probably about 2 years ago. We were going to try to maybe do a show together there, but anyway, so these things I have seen, and when they get mad, man, you don't know what's going to go on, and you're just hoping that it's a bluff charge. If it's going to do a charge, I've had them get mad at me one time down at a place called Smith Park. Yes, they will pace back and forth, get horribly mad. They will stomp.
I've got a couple of things.
Go ahead,
Mr. Lunsford.
Yeah.
So, 2 things. One thing you said you had a kid with you.
Yep.
The first time I saw one, I was 14. So, you know, it was like I was in awe. I was kind of stunned. It's almost like you're in a trance a little bit. Like I
Exactly.
wanted to run, but there was like I was stuck there, kind of, sort of.
Kind
But
of like I
anyway,
was.
It's
but
almost like
when
your
you,
brain is just trying to
yeah,
process everything
exactly.
so much that your body just shuts off.
Yeah, you don't have enough left to, enough brain power to run. But and another thing, when my son and I, we we ticked some off, and but we've been going for like 3 days a week for like 4 or 5 weeks because
Right.
we had some stuff happen, and I think we wore out our welcome. And it is a difference when you have somebody with you that you're responsible for, and it changes the whole thing. I was scared, and I'm thinking, what have I done? I've got my son. He was 27, but he's still my son. And this
Right.
thing was mad and pacing in a circle. I talked to Greg about it a couple weeks ago. He's had similar experiences, and it was picking up logs and dragging it to it and slamming against trees, and we could hear the log break. And it was throwing 20, 30 pound rocks
You're
and
right.
stuff. So, but that experience was intense, but it was more intense because I felt responsible for him.
That's exactly
And
right.
it's like
Everybody thinks
it
they hear
changes.
stick knock or tree knock, they think it's a stick. No, just like you said, they'll pick up a log and slam that sucker against another tree, and you'll hear that joker break, and you realize what you're dealing with
Yes,
is gigantic.
big.
And
Yes.
whatever it has the advantage over you. And so you're exactly right. Put, I mean, like I say, everybody call me Will. Just everybody that way I get used to it. I'll know when to answer at the end. Other than anybody calls me Lunsford, Mr. Lunsford, I'm like, oh man, that's my dad.
I'm sorry.
Just call me Will. And I just want everybody. Like I said, I try to leave everybody any show I do with the people who are in the audience and also with y'all as friends. I hope that we continue that tradition tonight. So like I said, just call me with. But yeah, when you have them there, that they're showing out, and my little nephew was 8 years old, and I was responsible for him,
Mhm.
and I had a gun, but I didn't have anything that was going to kill the thing. I was hoping to just make him do the dance, like they do the Mexican hat dance, because he was going to be dodging some lead if I could get it there. But I knew with my nephew there that things could take a turn, and they really love kids. Folks, Bigfoot has an admiration for children. They have it for women. For us men, I think sometimes it's a contempt. And
Yeah.
so, so you've got the ladies there, you've got the softer voice. You ladies attracted us men, and you also attract Bigfoot.
Well, I heard a lady one time on a show. I think she said it perfectly. She said somebody maybe was talking to me before we went on, and she said, "Well, you guys, y'all walk into the woods different. You have a pistol on your side. You think you're the king of the woods, and you have a different air about you." He said, "We don't do that." And so y'all automatically go in threatening wise. And I'm like, you know what? There may be something to that. And as far as you were young when this one saw you,
Yep.
or when you saw it,
Yep.
do you think it knew you from there? You think it saw
Yeah.
you before?
That's a good question, and I've had folks say, "Well," and they say it teasing, but it's not really a teasing thing. I think sometimes your character or your disposition gives off a vibe, and if it's an attractive to them, something they identify with, then they're pretty cool with you. But if it's one where you walk in, I'm armed when I go into the woods. I don't care what it is. I'm armed,
Mhm.
but I don't carry that firearm like I'll shoot you, Bigfoot.
Right.
So you just better just stay away. It's not that at all. Matter of fact, it's got an advantage over me when I see it or I have somebody with me because I'm a no kill. I've seen Bigfoot actually act in a family style attitude with babies, with actually having probably what was one of its siblings, actually having Bigfoot there with called the troop and the way they act. And it's not aggressive at all, unless I would assume just unless you'll hear them sometimes doing that pant hoot, that woo, 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 like that. Well, I've had them do that one night when me and my son were there, and they killed a deer that night, and they got really excited that night. And but other than that, right there, I've tried to be pretty level-headed with them, and so far they have with me too, except for those 2 times. Like I said, I had my family and had my pit bull, and they would if it wasn't going to get a free kill on any of them,
Yeah.
and that's if you're with me, I'm going to try to protect you, and that's I kind of accept that responsibility. And but then, like I said, if it goes all the way to the extreme that I have to pull a gun to protect my family or somebody that's with me, then I will. I'm hoping it don't go. And I think they know that because they know I don't want to do that. And so they're pretty tolerant. I was at the Bigfoot Woods yesterday.
Well,
and
somebody got on to me, Will, one time. I did a video and I had a rifle with me and it wasn't hunting season. And they were getting on to me about, oh, you're going to kill Bigfoot and blah, blah. I'm like, listen, here's the way it is. You guys say that they know your intentions. If they know my intentions, then we're good.
That's right.
Then we're extra good if they know my intentions. But
I've got go ahead. I'm sorry.
Amanda, what was that question that Pyro had about the size of what's the?
Yeah, he had a question. He was asking Will, says, what was the smallest one he's ever seen? And I'm assuming he's referring to the smallest Bigfoot you've seen.
Thank you.
The smallest one I've ever seen was probably that was by itself and not with his mama, was about 4 foot tall. That was actually freestanding by itself. I've got two there on one of the areas that I researched that are over 10 foot tall. That tends to because I didn't believe they got that tall at first. First I saw it was 7.5, 8 foot. I said, I thought it looked like Andre. That was the best that I could do at that time. The only way I could, now that I've seen that, I actually went to the one that, okay, Steamboat, I tell them I have a weapon. It's only for my protection. That's exactly right. Yeah. But I went down there with a meter stick and I measured one that was there that me and my friend from Alaska got there. And it was 10.5 foot tall. And he was standing there in a tree and he actually had a baby on his neck as far as that goes.
Wow.
You can see it right there. It's one of the best pictures you'll ever see. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of that, have you ever seen the babies? I have one report, and I had found some evidence. But have you ever seen one latched on to its mom as she's walking, like up on the shoulder, around the back, or anything? You said this was on the back, is what you said?
Yeah, it was on this one's neck right there.
Okay.
Yeah, right on his neck and shoulders. Now, me and Stephen Hill is my research partner, my normal research partner, original research partner. We've got a picture of one as she walks by. We had to move our camera because they started raising this. It was a clear cut, so we had to move our camera over. So now we've got the picture of her walking by from behind instead of in front, which was like what we're having. But she's got this baby on her shoulder, and you can see it plain as day. And I mean, you see the little cone head, this baby Bigfoot is starting to develop. You see the hair on him and everything else like that. And she's got her arms out like this. She's having to arms out like this. She's having to walk across some brush and some broken logs to go back to where she's at. You know, Bigfoot, from what I've seen, Bigfoot have a place they eat. Bigfoot has a place that they sleep. And I think she was on the place from wherever it was feeding, going back to where they were going to sleep. But we've actually got that picture of her. And I mean, it's a dang good picture. And I was just so blown away. It was probably about 6:45 or 7 o'clock this morning. First picture after we had gotten there and put this new camera out, and then everything else after that. But I think after that, she ran everything else away because there she is. You know, you mess with a mom with a baby, you don't try that in the human world, see what happens, Steve. But try it with Bigfoot world.
She had mama bear syndrome, probably. I have a question for you, Will. The ones that you've seen, both, it sounds like you've seen both male and female with infants with them. Are they? And Roger was asking how they were holding them. When they're holding them, is it, for lack of better terminology, is it like ape-like, like, you know, where the baby will cling onto the hair or the fur or anything, or when, like, you know, if you've seen, like, you have a toddler up on your shoulders and they got the legs down like that, and so is it more ape-like or more human-like or both?
Most of the time, it's the baby just doing the holding on to the mama and kind of from the side or from the back wherever it can. She's not carrying it like that. Although I do have a friend that's got 8 of them on his property, and said the mama's about 8 foot tall, and when she gets down with that baby, she holds it with one arm like that, and she's on 3. And he said she can run faster on 3 than what the other ones can on 2. But it's been just a few times I've seen that mama, but I've got several pictures like that of those babies like that. And like I said, they're hanging on to the side. Very fortunate to the areas that I have. I've got 7 game cameras out right now that I set out there yesterday. And there's times I have as many as 10 game cameras down there. And you get these pictures, and I've got some really good pictures. Some are not so good, but then like I said, some of that has to do with motion. Some of it has to do with light. You're stuck with the situation that you're in when you leave them down there. If it's raining, you're going to have drops sometimes. So those things right there. But I've got a lot of pictures. I've probably got 150 pictures of Bigfoot and their body parts and different ones. I got a picture of you. Go ahead, bud.
What do you have more success with? What type of camera? Like you said, you have some motion and you have some. What is there a certain one you have more success with than the other?
To be honest with you, I actually have more success with a still camera. I think there's something in that motion camera. I mean, I've said it. I've moved my dang cameras when I've had a trail there. Normal Bigfoot's walking that trail every day, and I've moved my cameras to put a one that shoots like a video, and then move the still camera elsewhere. And then I'll get the picture on the still camera. And then the one that I have there, that's Bigfoot, I know is because of the tracks. He's going there every day, and he won't walk by it. I don't know if it's because I've had the same thing sometimes with deer there when they're walking by there. I used to have a big old deer, and so he could hear the thing. And man, me and my son tried for 2 years to get that booger, and he would walk right, and I'd see the tracks going by. I'm like, we're gonna get a picture of him now. And he'd go right behind the tree, almost like the thing was alerting that, hey, you need to kind of divert the way that you're walking. So I think Bigfoot does that. I really do. I think they react to that with the video cameras like that, as far as getting the motion with it. I get more with the still cameras, but then I also, like I said, I bury my still cameras. Oh yeah, I've got one with a camera in his mouth, exactly right, and you can see another one watching. You can see the eyes. I mean, I got a picture last week of another Bigfoot biting my camera, and you can actually see. Amanda's a great guest too, man. When you've got somebody like this right here, when you've got people here who've had sightings, it's amazing, because you can talk about so many things on a different in-depth subject, and kind of
so. And here's what's amazing to me. I'm jealous because the Bigfoot world comes to Amanda. They come to her, and they have their stories, and probably like you also will, if they're telling stories, and I know she does. You're taking piece of that, like, wait a minute, I've heard this here. What part of the country were you in?
That's right.
You can put together dots on the map, whatever you want to call it, and important research information. So I'm jealous.
I did that with my UPS route. Yeah, I would have my UPS route, and I would get stories from people and stuff like that. And I tell people I'd start out there. I'd be off in the woods or something like that, and it'd be Bigfoot looking country. Everywhere I've seen Bigfoot, I've seen palmettos. So if I see palmettos around the area, I'm kind of suspicious. And so I'll sit there and I'll, boy, man, you live so far out here in the woods. Only reason Bigfoot don't live out here is because it's too far for him to walk. Some people would laugh and they'd let it go, but then other people would say, well, if you think that, you need to be here about dark. And then I'd say, well, I'm afraid of the dark. And they'd say, well, you should be. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'll be back to find out more about this. And sometimes I have, and sometimes I haven't. But
have you ever talked to somebody when there was like company there, and they're like, no, and then like, hey, when nobody's here, I want to talk to you?
That's right. I sure have.
Yeah,
I have as well.
And you can
imagine on that. Yeah,
the way they're laughing, the way they're laughing, like, I've got something to tell you later on, so be sure you ask me. But you're right, and that's a good question, because there's such a stigma that goes with it, and it shouldn't be, folks. I'm telling you right now, and I hope you can see it by my demeanor. Bigfoot is real, and what I have seen. It's not because necessarily anything I've done, because I'm the greatest researcher in the world, whatever. I'm there because Bigfoot, I think, has a trust in me. I've got an area down here around Fouke. I'm close to Oklahoma. I'm close to Louisiana sloughs and the swamps. I'm also close to some of the thickets there in Texas. And there's a lot of Bigfoot around here. I've seen Bigfoot. I saw one in Montana. I saw one in Oklahoma. And then I followed one up the Mississippi River in Memphis, Tennessee, almost to the pyramid there one day, followed the track line there. So, but Bigfoot is real, and I don't. Go ahead, buddy.
Amanda. How many people do you have that mention train tracks?
Quite a lot, actually. The train tracks and the power line.
Exactly.
I can't think of what the where it's actually called. Where it's clear cut for the power lines to run through. Which we got a lot of that here in Georgia, especially, and here in the southeast, because the trees are so much. You just got to clear it out for the lines. So yeah, we hear that all the time. And if I can come back to a question I had about, you were talking about the cameras. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts and theories throughout your research about why you think they try to avoid the cameras, or how they know that they're there?
Well, number one would be like us with self-preservation. I used to sneak on some people places to go out there and bass fish that I didn't have permission to go. I promise you, if I knew they had a daggum camera out there, I wasn't going to walk in front of it. I was going to fish the other side of the pond. But I think Bigfoot may realize there's something a little different to it. I'm not going to say that it realize it puts it in peril, but there's something different about it. And so the one way that I managed to get all the pictures that I've gotten is we take our cameras, instead of tying them to trees right there. You know, if your wife or husband, if he hangs a cuckoo clock in your hallway, you walk there and thump your head, you're going to know, hey, that cuckoo clock wasn't there. Well, the same way, they recognize when something has not been there. So my research partners and I, we take our cameras and we put them in brush piles, and we don't necessarily tie them down. We do sometimes. They'll throw you cameras, and then after I have one throw my camera, I will try to tie it inside the brush top, but they'll hide it. And so all of a sudden, when they walk by the brush top, it gets their picture. What's really funny is their expression. The next thing you get is you get the Bigfoot looking in there, trying to see what's in there, or else you get that hand reaching in there to get your camera. Mm-hmm. And then when you do, then a lot of times you don't find your camera. I've got a couple out in the woods right now. The Lord himself only knows where they're at, because that Bigfoot's done tossed them. And all you can do is just laugh at it.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, you must think I'm stupid. I know they're not
right.
Stupid. Gosh, they're smart, man. Good.
Here's a good question.
Yes, okay. Yeah, that is a good question.
So who wants to go first?
Y'all go ahead. I'm good.
So I'll read it to the audience. It says, what do y'all think is the most compelling types of evidence for Bigfoot, not counting photos or videos? For me, it's some of the physical evidence that they leave behind, obviously footprints, hair samples, DNA, you know, like I said, nests that we see inside, all the stuff they see, and then obviously the witness testimonies, because if we didn't have people sharing and talking about these things, you wouldn't have anything at all. It wouldn't be known about at all.
I've got
go ahead.
I've got one. You know, she's right. There's one though that I feel like is really good, and it's the audio recordings, because they can be put on a spectrograph and measured. And that's science, where, you know, you can tell what it's not. Like, right. You don't know exactly what it is, but if it rules out a lot of things,
sure,
and it starts to follow a pattern. Like I've been fortunate enough twice. I think I'm fortunate enough, because I was scared both times, but to record the howls.
Yeah.
And it looks like that upside down Nike sign, you know, that.
Yeah.
And we had 3 triangulated at Holland Hunter Camp in Alabama. And it's 1, 2, and then one across the other ridge. They were triangulated. The first 2 were really loud. And even that sound, I've heard it enough now. Like Will was talking about earlier, I immediately knew what it was, because we have heard it, and I have been told by people that's gone over the sounds that, hey, we think that's a booger, because it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. So, you know, that's what we think it is. So anyway,
now, something else is the smell. Like I was telling you.
Yeah.
Man, that smell, I've told my wife for years, you know, and it took me 30 years to make a full believer out of her, and 33 to make one of my father-in-law. But I've told both them, I said, you can fake everything about Bigfoot, but you can't fake that smell.
No.
But once she's been down there with me and you smell that smell, there ain't no faking it. When you smell it, boy, all the light bulbs in your head instantly go off. Bigfoot right there, because you know what it is. And so the Bigfoot are there as far as that kind of the evidence. Then the trails, the big boy trails, what we call them big boy trails. Some people call them tall boy, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, you look, and the trails, there's grass up to the knees, but then everything from the knees that will be up to the head is broken off up there up top. You can find those trails like that right there. And and again, the fact that what your terrain is, like I said, there was a line from the Legend of Boggy Creek. They always travel the creeks. Well, they do. They travel the water line. If you're somewhere near a water line, sometimes if I don't have permission to go somewhere and Bigfoot hunt, but I'm suspicious, I'll go to some of the boat ramps or some of the wildlife management areas or something like that close to there, get out and do some calling, or else do some looking around where it's public property where you can go without being arrested for trespass. And that's another one. Like I said, if you're around that territory, whatever that terrain is, right now, I think one of the most valuable things that we have right now is the number of Bigfoot that are being seen in the mountains up there. There's so many, like Gary Spike said up there. He and I were up there at Land Between the Lakes a couple of years ago, and they're on the kind of in a draw between two mountains. He and I were talking, and we heard a couple of them, or actually one up there whistling a couple of times up there on the mountaintop. So if you're there around the mountain, something that it does you a lot of good to do your research to try to find out. Okay, this is the smell I haven't smelled. Sometimes, I'm kind of like, I have had the smell hit me, but not connected to a sighting. And it could be that they have, they'll sit right there. One thing they'll do is what's called hide in plain sight. Just because you don't see them, they're there. And then sometimes I think they can leave that like a skunk does to try to intimidate you, because it does. It's something that you realize. And the Lord gave them a lot of characteristics to take care of himself that he didn't give us. When you're 9 and 10 foot tall, you better have some extra set of characteristics.
That's a great theory.
Yeah. So for people who have never smelled them, I think I have one time, and I'll tell you why I think it was. But how can the best way you can describe the ones now? The ones in your area, because I feel like the ones in Florida may smell different because of humidity and
exactly.
Depending on the terrain once again, and how long the hair is, whatever.
Right.
But in your area, what's the best description you can give those folks?
Around here, the best description I can give, it's like a skunk that's been walking through rotten eggs and then wading through sewage, and then decided to take a walk by a chicken house and get some of that chicken fertilizer on his fur as well. Plus, it would have natural fecal remains and roadkill remains in its hair, because it's just that bad. I mean, it'll make your
anything bad that you can imagine. Just combine that all into one.
Yeah.
And black licorice. No, I hate black licorice.
Hey, my buddy's wife down there one night, and we had gone to eat down there on the edge of Sulphur River, and there's a restaurant down there. And so when we got through, we'd had a sighting like 3 days before. So we went down to the boat ramp, and I had told her how bad the smell was. So we were down there, and his daughter wanted to throw rocks. So we get a Bigfoot interacting with us. So we're going back to the vehicle. My wife already smells the Bigfoot. She's already gone back to the truck. She's the only one that's got any sense. But my buddy's wife hadn't smelled it. She gets about halfway back to the boat ramp. She goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting that rotten, that fish smell that you've been talking about." Man, she starts dry heaving. But I think a lot of that had to do also with the infrasound, not just as far, because it can make you where you lose control of your body functions, but then it also stinks. And so she's up there. So, dry heaving, I go get her and walk her back to the truck. And then we come back, and then I get my buddy and his daughter. So go ahead.
Would you agree or disagree with this? I try to tell people that there's a distinct smell with death, and this is not that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Decay. Now there was a little bit, but have you ever had a dog that was all shaggy and everything, and you try to cut that stuff off of there, and it's been growing, and it's got that decay stink to it?
Yep.
To me, I did get that wet dog smell, but also got that decay. And I also know what a coyote smells like, but there was more to it. It was stronger. I never should have been able to smell it walking behind me.
Right.
So when you say you smell something dead, to me, that's totally different than what we're talking about.
Yeah, something dead. Yeah, I just told her, like, the thing I explained to her that night, so she was talking about, I said, it's kind of like a dead fish smell. I said, it's worse than dead fish smell is what I said. But then, after later on, after she smelled it, she realized that, like you said, there was something different. It wasn't just something dead. It was something they were using like almost as a technique to intimidate you. Got a question that says, do you think the supposed vocalization of Bigfoot is similar to birds who can mimic sounds, tones? Is there room for more woo explanation? On the woo deal, I haven't experienced any woo, so I can't say that I could say that and do credence to that question. But as far as to the sounds of the birds, I've heard them do. If you've ever heard them called, sometimes you've seen that show that's called Killing Bigfoot, and they talk about a bionic bird. Well, they actually make that sound like a bionic bird. It's really, really my mouth is real dry right now, or I would do it for you, but I can't whistle right now. So, but anyway, they do make that sound. They are wonderful with the barred owl call, and I've heard them also doing like a meadowlark call. And so they're great with birds. They're really, just like nature's imitators. And that's not just me trying to attribute some characteristic to them that they shouldn't have and try to, it's honest truth, because because it's got so much volume to it. You can tell it ain't no dog. If it's a mockingbird or a robin, it weighs 50 pounds. Well, there's not many 50-pound robins and mockingbirds out there.
It's
Yeah.
funny because go ahead, Amanda. We've experienced some of this you're talking about, but go ahead.
Oh no, it's just exactly what he was saying about them imitating an owl. I actually have taken a report there at the museum of vocalization. He said it was like the loudest owl they've ever heard in their life. It said it had to be an owl that would be the size of a dump truck.
That's right.
I mean,
And
that
that's my,
also about
that,
not necessarily birds, but other animals as well, about them imitating, because down here in the South, we got coyotes running like crazy. And so they imitate the coyotes a lot too, mostly because they aggravate the Bigfoot so much.
well, sure, they do. I mean, we've actually heard coyotes start a scream, Bigfoot come in, and all of a sudden the coyotes shut up. Then we've heard
Mhm.
Bigfoot start to scream, coyotes jump in, then you hear the coyote like he's getting his tail whipped or he's getting killed. I mean, there's actually, I don't know if there's a dominance to the way that they do that or stuff, but it is. It's incredible. Like I said, my favorite call is actually the barred owl call. And I've kind of, when I was in my UPS truck, for 12 hours every day, you kind of learn to work on your animal calls, so didn't have a whooper. Okay, they do a whippoorwill too. We down here sometimes we call them a bobwhite. Exactly right. But they'll mimic those things, and then that's what I got to do. I'm working on my barred owl mimic, and then I've got a little plastic megaphone about yay tall. It's about 6 or 7 inches tall, and I use that, and that's the best tool I've got because it changes your voice from just a human type voice, and it's not a mechanical sound, but it changes it to a deeper, richer sound. Like, and you put that little thing up there, and you can really. And that's the first thing I do. Did it yesterday when I went down to the Bigfoot woods. Me and my buddy jokingly call it making a phone call to see if there's somebody at home.
Well,
and they'll answer us. Go ahead.
Well, there's one place we go. My son's really good with calls. Sometimes he don't like you're doing there, and he's really good at recognizing sounds too. He's my sound guy. So one day my wife was with us, and it was daylight. We were just hanging out there, and not just just having a good time, just chilling and talking. But it's one of our hot spots, and I'm like, "Hey, Peyton, do a barred owl or something, just to try to get something stirred up." Well, when the owls come in, they come in through the trees, and they're up in the trees,
right?
And they have certain sounds. You can hear one way off or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd heard this before. What Amanda said about the bigger sounding. We were standing on the ground, and probably 60 or 70 yards away on the ground in the woods, there was this sound. It tried to sound like a barred owl.
Yeah.
My son's head snapped around and looked at me. He said, "That thing sounded 300 pounds." I said, "And it's on the ground. It's on the ground. That's not right."
I've experienced the same thing. It's so coincidental because we're all saying the same thing. I've never been to Georgia, where I've been to Alabama and Florida. I've never been there where y'all are, but we're describing the same thing. So that actually happens. And so metallic sounds in the forest. I've heard metallic sounds, but then it was actually one that I had one night that was actually knocking on a metal railroad bridge down there on the Sulphur River. And that's the only time I've had them with the metallic sounds.
Well, I heard something one time that I couldn't identify at first, but I recorded it, and once again I sent it to my son. And I don't know whether it was a sandhill crane with something wrong with its voice box or whatever. Yeah. But it almost at first sounded like an electrical sound.
Yeah,
that's why I didn't get it. But I have had, and there's been people with me when we heard things that metal sound, and it's been a couple of times. I can't say it was a Bigfoot, but it shouldn't have been there. There's nobody there. There's no gates. There's no feed troughs. There's no, we walk those in the daylight all the time, and there shouldn't be anything there that would be able to make that sound.
I've really started hearing a lot about that lately. Like some of my friend Martin Groves, they're talking about some of the dog men up around LBL, and they hear a metallic sound through there. Like I said, I haven't experienced that yet, or the woo yet down here. Most of mine just tend to be just regular. There's no such thing as average run-of-the-mill Bigfoot sighting, but they tend to be average run-of-the-mill Bigfoot sighting. You see it, the creature's there, he sees you. You'll do something other than they'll walk off, and so far, luckily, knock on wood, I get to go home that afternoon. Yeah. But it's one of those things I'm hearing a lot about. And folks, if you just because you've never experienced it, don't mean it's not true. Y'all may have experienced something I've never experienced. And so, I don't question people like that right there. I don't publicly criticize other real researchers. Now, the ones that are out there coming up with some of this silly bull, had one tell me one time that any Bigfoot over 7.5 foot tall was a fake, or 16-inch track longer than that was a fake. I confronted him afterwards. I said, "You just lied to everybody." And I have pictures.
At one point, there was a well-respected researcher that said there were no Bigfoot east of the Rockies.
That's right.
So things change, right? Knowledge.
Well, they do.
And the difference between Will and Amanda, y'all, and me, we know this stuff is real, and people try to let me ask y'all this. So, Amanda, the people come to the I know they probably come to Will and try to discredit him, maybe, or laugh at him. So do people come in the Bigfoot Museum just to laugh at it, or
all the time?
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah, people come in there to laugh at it, a good time, and David will say the same thing. It's like, hey, it's their money. If they still want to spend it, it's keeping my bills paid. And so, even they're still seeing it. They're still have the knowledge there in their face. And if they're still that naive or hard-headed to not open their minds up to something besides football,
You know the best way.
That's on them.
That's
the
right.
best way, Amanda, that I found to tell if someone has really seen something that shouldn't exist is, but they're like Will said, you have an open mind. Just because I haven't seen it, I can't sit here and say no, that couldn't have happened, because what I saw that day for the first time, I'm like, I have no right to tell anybody that they're lying. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, I say all the time, is like somebody can come up to me and say they've seen pink and purple polka dotted elephants, and who am I to say that they didn't?
That's right.
What you're looking at,
they're probably pulling my leg, but who am I to say that they didn't? That's not my place to do that.
I tell this friend of mine in Alaska, he's started a new podcast called Cryptid Wilderness Research, and we were talking the other day, and I said, man, it's probably easier for somebody to believe in Bigfoot when they've never seen one than it is when you've got one standing right in front of you, because your body and mind just will not. You have been taught all your life, as a rule, most of us have, there's no such thing as, quote, monsters. Anything we don't understand, is a monster. That there's no such thing. And you've got something standing in front of you like that, and your mind will not hardly let you process that and what it is. Like, this is real. And so it is. So it's, if they're sitting there, they think, well, yeah, it may be possible. It may be possible in California. It may be possible in Washington State. Well, man, let me tell you what, Bigfoot sightings in America that I have seen, all the study I've done, did not start in Washington State. They did not start in Oregon or California. The first Bigfoot sighting, let's see, Champlain up there, up north, he had some there that he had been talking about, that some that the Indians had, that was, theirs was actually just totally female. But then you get down here and you start talking about Natchez, Mississippi was the very first one. Milledgeville, Georgia. There was one in South Carolina at that time. Then also you get into Arkansas, 1834. Arkansas was called the Wild Man. I know about this one because I'm an Arkie. And so that was 2 years before Arkansas statehood. That was about 35 to 40 years before Abraham Lincoln became president. And so you look at how long ago that time frame is, but here they are down here. So it actually started here. Bigfoot had started here in middle America. Was Bigfoot still in Washington and California at that time? There's no doubt about it. But as far as the first sightings, it's not a product of California movies or anything else like that. Middle America had Bigfoot first, and then it started kind of moving over, or else we just had enough. We're just Southern enough that we're just going to say, you can like it or you don't. We're going to tell you the truth.
Let me tell you what happened. So you're right. You go in caves. You go. There's the tribes all over. People all over the world have different names for these things. Some people say they have traded with them. Yohola Tiger out in Oklahoma said he said, we believe they're a people. He said, I didn't say they're people. I said they're a people of their own.
People.
Yeah,
exactly.
A people, the difference. And so during that time, we even had newspaper articles, and we had all this and these stories. And I believe it Daniel Boone that supposedly killed one. Wrote about it. Had to shoot it in the head because it had a big breastplate and whatever. But anyway, So at one point, and I'm getting to the point here. At one point, it became taboo to talk about,
All
like
right.
other things, like
Mhm.
UFOs or whatever, and it was shut down. But here, I believe because of the fear, and when people fear something, they're either going to go destroy it or they're not going to come out of their house. So then you start getting into the money that we all spend with outdoors. You with bass fishing and buying rods and reels and boats and all that, and then hikers. So when what happened, I think, with Fouke, Arkansas, and I wasn't alive. I was just born. But just what Pyro said earlier in chat, when I heard about Patty, Patty was in California, up in that area. It's like Godzilla was in Japan. I wasn't worried about Godzilla.
That's
But
right.
the Bigfoot's over on that side. I'm like, okay, we're good. Well, then Fouke, Arkansas is right in the middle almost, and like, oh no. So the fear gets a little closer to home, or the boogeyman gets a little closer to home. So
Mhm.
anyway, Teddy Roosevelt also too. So yeah, I mean, it it's I'm interested in when did it get shut down? Who shut it down? I think I know who, but if I talk about it on YouTube, then make sure flag me again. But
Yeah.
it's like everything else. So what are y'all's thoughts?
Well, first thing I think is maybe Zuckerberg, now that he's kind of changed his ways, will quit shutting us off of Facebook and penalize us for a week so that we can't get on there and realize that some of the things people are telling you are true, whether you want to believe them or not.
Yeah,
I'll say that plain out. And if they want to penalize me, then that's fine. But that's just the truth. Things are out there. Man, these people who've had life-changing experiences, they're not sitting there you telling you a bunch of junk. I told my buddy from Alaska there, I told him, I said, everybody thinks you're trying to get your 15 minutes of fame. What they don't realize is about 14 of those 15 minutes are ridicule. Who wants that?
I know. And there ain't no money in it. It costs
No.
you money.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's a hobby, but just like you said earlier, Amanda,
Mhm.
if that hadn't happened to you when you were earlier, would you took a job at a Bigfoot museum?
Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe yes or no. But probably not. No.
So we're sitting here because we couldn't talk about it. Now we can talk about it. It relieved it. It got it off my shoulders. And then I noticed because we were allowing people to talk about it, that it was helping them. So that helps me
Mhm.
too. So that's
Hey,
why.
man,
Exactly. Same for me.
exactly. It's like a therapy group, man. When when you're carrying it all by yourself, you're carrying a burden because you want to tell somebody, like the police say, there's an urge to confess. You want to talk about this, but you can't because people are ridiculing you. Nobody likes ridicule. I had to really control my temper back then because I was, young man, it make me mad. Now I was ready
Yeah.
to fight pretty doggone quick because I knew how it affected me.
Right.
And then once I got, more mature and kind of got calmed down, but it does, you see, it's helping people to be able to talk about it. And to get that burden off their shoulders. And then two, one reason I enjoy talking about it is because they help other people have sightings, to let them know, hey, like I told y'all earlier, Bigfoot is real, folks. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it shouldn't even be a question anymore.
Right.
But you got these people that they want to be the know-it-all. Well, like I said, even then they don't know it all. Look at science, all the things science can prove. For me,
Yeah.
science don't believe in God. How in the world do you miss all that right there? You can't do
And-
that.
People keep on forgetting that the science changes all the time too.
That's right. Yeah, it's not science.
There's a story I go to when people talk about history and science and the things we're being taught. And if you tell them to go to usflag.org and read the real story on the U.S. flag, where most people think Betsy Ross made the first one and all that, where her nephew told that story 90 years after she died. And everybody just accepted it. She was not the first person, and they've got it on the government website. But I bring that up because people believe everything they're told most of the time. And if you could just start showing them little things like that start chipping away, maybe we can open their eyes. And Amanda didn't know she was a therapist, a Bigfoot therapist, also.
Yeah, apparently that's part of my job now.
Do y'all spouses go with y'all when you go?
I don't actually go out into the field on purpose per se to go out and hunt Bigfoot. Because for me myself, I've had so many experiences with other things that go bump in the
Yeah.
night,
Yeah,
other boogers and stuff, especially as a kid and growing up. And for me, it was the opposite. My family was very open that yes, there are monsters out there,
there are.
both physical and spiritual. So to watch out for them. So I don't necessarily go out there on purpose just because I don't want to have anything come home with me that I don't want.
Right.
Yep.
But I do go out in the woods still. My husband, he's a mountain biker, and we both like to go out into the woods, when I'm out there. If I'm by myself, I do the same thing. I try to stay, strapped. And I just, like I said, I put my intentions out there, hey, I'm just here to have a good time with my husband. I mean no harm. I'm just here to enjoy nature. I understand this is your home, and I want
That's
to
right.
respect it. I just put that intention out. And there have been times, I still get that oogie boogie feeling. I'm like, yeah, maybe I should turn around and start heading back to the truck or whatever. But
Yeah.
it could be. Hopefully, it's just your sixth sense because we have so many bears around here that it's just a bear, not another Bigfoot sighting.
Exactly.
Well, Heather goes with me a lot. I hadn't got to do a lot since my hip's been, in the shape it's in. But, I almost was scared to tell the story. I didn't know, we've been together over 5 years now, and I wanted to act a little bit sane for a while, And but what was funny, she was on the phone with her sister, and she lives in Missouri, and they've got some land close to. They live close to Kansas City, but they've got some land close to Mark Twain National Forest area, and so she lived here for a while when they moved in from Florida, and she's, what are you doing? Oh, I'm getting ready for a show, and well, what kind of show? And Heather like, oh, he started a Bigfoot show, and crickets, and I'm like, oh, here we go. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. I get the
don't
same
pick
thing.
your
Like, oh
phone,
boy.
and she said, "Huh, Heather, did I ever tell you about the white one me and Tempe saw?" It one exit up at night. It walked across in front of her, stepped across the fence. She said it was huge, and I'm like, "Oh, thank you." But she hasn't seen one yet, but she's been around a lot of stuff when this happened. Even the screams. We saw orb one night that was in a tree for 20 minutes,
Yep.
and there was no reason for it to be there, and it wasn't the same shape. It was pulsating, and it was almost like this light here I've got here that's kind of dimmed a little bit.
Right.
But anyway, so the answer to your question is yes, she goes and she loves it. I mean, but we're spending time together. Where we got a fire going, whatever. We've had things. We had one come out, y'all. One night, my son and his girlfriend were there. We'd been there for a while, and I had recorder going on my phone, and I'm like, well, we've been here 4 hours, nothing's happened. I put it in the truck upside down, and a little while later, something came out and screamed. I mean, it about blew us away, about 30 yards from us. And I'm like, oh no. And his girlfriend, she hit the truck, locked him out of his truck.
Oh my goodness.
And you know, people, they ask what it sounds like, and I'm gonna do what you did with the smell.
Yep.
So it, for a half a second, it sounded male,
Yeah.
humanish male. But then it went too high and too
Yeah.
long, and it changed when it went up.
Mhm.
It now this is awful, y'all, but this is, I'm gonna paint this picture for everybody in chat. It sounded like you took and tied somebody to a tree and made them listen to Taylor Swift for a week, and then sawed their ankles with a hacksaw. That's pretty
If I
rough.
had to listen to Taylor Swift for a week, you could saw my ankles with a
Y'all, Taylor Swift fans, I'm just joking. I just
I
use
know it
I
may
could have
be.
said Nickelback or something like that, but which I actually like. But yeah, these things, y'all, when Will's talking about hearing or seeing or smelling, and Amanda hears these stories, we know he said something early in the show. It sounded making sounds like it was the boss of the woods.
Yep.
When they make a noise, y'all, it's not like, oh, that might be this or no, there's nothing. There's one thing that compared to the volume and the vibration that I ever heard, and it was a lion, a full-grown male lion,
Yes,
let
sir.
out a roar, scream type, whatever it was, and it went through all my body. And what's funny is they can do infrasound. It's proven that they can do infrasound.
Yep.
So anyway,
Yeah, a lot of big cats have the infrasound ability.
Oh yeah, tigers have that infrasound,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll say this in addendum to what I said a while ago, Taylor. If you ever want to go to the woods, we can use your voice, and you can try the call, and we can see if it will bring one of them in, being a female voice. I said that jokingly. If you ever heard me sing for a week, you'd want to cut your ankles off too. So, but
we're
I've
gonna
had,
get hate mail.
no, I'm not. Everybody knows I'm kidding. I'm a big joker as far as that goes.
Oh yeah.
But so it's funny when the voices that they have, they can go through so many ranges. Like I said, it starts out like a male, ends up kind of like a female. But they got such a set of lungs. Since I've heard some people say they've got an extra set of teeth. Or maybe 2 larynxes. I don't know about that right there.
Well,
that's a good theory, but
I heard Cliff Barackman talking to a guy on his web or his show one time, the podcast, and the guy was talking about he had a really close encounter, and it said when it screamed, it expanded here. Well, Cliff was saying there's 2 or 3 primates that have air sacs here that it will expand, and I think the guy was really scared because that it looked like something otherworldly to him.
Yep.
And that I think that really messed him up. But with the sounds, y'all, it's just you can describe all this stuff. You can say, oh, it was about 8 foot tall, or it was about 7 foot tall, and 600, 900 pounds or whatever. But until you see it, you can't wrap your head around it.
That's right.
It's just crazy.
When talking about the puffing deal right there, look at a bullfrog when he gets out there and gets across, and that neck gets to swelling up. It makes just as much sense for me for a Bigfoot to have that, because then it enhances the baritone or the bass of their voice, depending on whether they're the biggest frog in the pond or whatever.
Yeah, there's it's actually a kind of ironic and a crazy synchronicity. My hubby and I keep documentaries on TV a lot because that's just the kind of people we are. And anyway, we were literally just watching a documentary about different types of monkeys, and like I said, it literally looks like a bullfrog whenever it goes to howl, and it's to amplify.
That's right.
That kind of stuff. So I mean, like I said, it's a very, very interesting theory.
Now, I've heard this. I know what it sounds like, but I'm gonna ask both of y'all. Amanda, do you have stories of people coming in talking about the difference between rock clacks and mouth pops?
Yes and no. I've heard of it, but
so
yeah,
we're gonna help you out here. We're gonna give you some information. No, you're good.
I was mimicking my like I said, that's my ADD brain going. I was like, yeah, I've heard of bears when they chomp I've seen videos of bears chomping and stuff. So
you shook your head when I mentioned that. Can you explain to her the difference? Now I've heard it after somebody told me about it, and if I hear it out in the woods now, when they make a mouth pop, you can hear in the sinuses the resonance in the sinuses, and with the rock clacks and the tree knocks, it's different.
It's like being at Hollywood Bowl, and the way the acoustics are so good there. That's kind of what you hear right there, and it changes the acoustics as far as that goes. But there's I actually have a video there that they put on Facebook or maybe it's YouTube. It's called Encounters with the Boggy Creek Monster, and you can actually hear that creature on that video back there knocking, because I was telling the reporter that day, about how we had this encounter between my wife and my son, and I was actually rock clacking that night. I'd never tried it before. I have a whole cocktail of calls that I can do, but he wouldn't respond to any of them. So finally, I told my wife, I said, well, so they say they'll respond to rock clacking. So I start rock clacking, and like Buddy Rich, like I'm playing the drums, and all of a sudden, you hear Woo, like that. I told my wife, I said, there he is, And so she said, how do you know? She said, that sounds like an owl. I said, no. I said, that's him. So sure enough, he eventually came on in, do with that right there. But the rock clacking, you can hear the difference. Like you said, it doesn't have the same kind of resonance as what it has. No, do they actually, clack rocks? Do they actually hit sticks against trees? They hit logs? We know they all do, but that may be something that we kind of underestimated as far as, something. I've got a friend that can pop like that, and boy, I mean, it goes off like a daggum, like a shotgun, just about it. So there's different ways that they can use their vocabulary or use the vocalizations that they have, and it would have to be that way. There's not always a rock or a stick handy. So the good Lord have to give them a set of, again, like I said, characteristics that he can use whenever those things aren't available.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a cool story for y'all. Make it quick. Pyro that was in chat earlier, he's from Oklahoma. We met him at Land Between the Lakes last year, and he was telling a story about being at a Bigfoot conference or whatever. And this guy had audio. So Pyro, I can't. I'm gonna get it wrong. I get it wrong every time. I'll let him tell. He's not Cherokee, but anyway. This guy played this audio to a man, and Pyro said as soon as he heard it, he snapped around, and another guy did too. And he said, "Do y'all know what this is?" He said, "Yeah, that was a certain language, Native American language. It was a mixture of two." And I believe he said the female voice said, "People, what do?" And they're at a frog pond, and the male said, "Scared." And it's like, and he said he was shocked when he heard it, but there was somebody there to confirm it. He said, "Yeah, that's exactly what that's saying," and that don't sound human. So, so there
really
you go
cool.
again.
With the talking vocalizations in with the famous Sierra sounds, Ron Moorhead and Al Berry's recordings, Mr. Scott Nelson's analysis of it says it reminds him very much phonetically of a lot of Native American tribes up from like the BC area and the Yukon and stuff. So that's actually very interesting.
Yeah, when he said he slowed it down, said he could actually hear the syllabization and everything on that right there, rather than what we hear at our decibel level and our speed.
Yeah. And it's just like us right now. We're all so excited and we're talking. We step on each other a little bit, and we're and that was the same thing. It's not like, hey, this made a sound and this made a sound. It was overlapping, like it was a conversation amongst several. So yeah, I mean that's the science of it. I mean, here's what I tell people. Well, how do you know it's real? And I'm like, well, I kind of, I've seen one. So, but where's the evidence of this? Where's this? And I said, look, I cannot have a 50-year conversation with you in 3 minutes.
Right.
So if you've got time, I'll gladly talk to you, but don't expect me to lay everything out in just, just a few minutes here. But anyway, it's amazing to me. The technology, seeing Mr. Will on TV and seeing him on these documentaries, and Amanda's in Georgia, and we can come on here and talk, and we've got 75 people watching right now, and a lot more will watch later because there's other shows that we're kind of accidentally going against.
Yeah,
but to me, it's like I used to call. Facebook, the world's back porch, and it's full of bumper stickers. Everybody's posting memes and everything. But this is more like a meeting, like being on the porch drinking tea and telling stories around the fire or whatever. And I can only imagine what Amanda's heard. I mean, the stories. Yeah, I mean, well, are y'all good to go for a little while, or we've been an hour and 30 minutes?
Yeah, I show about an hour and 33, but we got so we're right at an hour and a half. But I'm fine to go however y'all want to go.
I'm good to keep going too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Amanda,
see how the people think they're an audience. If they're good, I'm good.
I'm good. And Amanda, you have any questions that you like to ask him, or we won't let him? I know he's got a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah. So You may have said it, and if I missed it, I apologize. Your first encounter that you were talking about, where they mentioned, was what year was that? Because you said the second one was in 85.
Yeah, 1977 was my first, right before I was fixing to graduate high school. And then 1985 was my second one. So I've been doing this now for 47 years. I mean, I feel like I'm the old man, but then I find out that there's other people who've been doing it about as long as what I have, which really surprises me, but still, why did they stay with it for 47 years too? Because there's something to it.
Exactly. Yeah. So would that have been before or after the Legend of Boggy Creek movie?
Mine was 5 years after the Legend of Boggy Creek movie.
That's what I was thinking in my head.
Yeah,
so
5 years after.
Had you already seen the film and was familiar with it whenever that encounter happened?
I had. We were here in Texarkana. It debuted here at Texarkana, a place called the Paramount Theater. You had like a 6-hour wait outside of that movie theater to get to see the movie when it came through. There were people wrapped around the block for like 3 hours or more, just waiting, and 3 city blocks. Wow. And then you was lucky to get in after that right there. So it was really an amazing thing. And of course, people here, a lot of these folks come from the same clan. They knew some of the same people that were sitting there telling these stories. And they're like, gosh, I know that guy. And he's telling, he ain't no liar. He's telling the truth. So it really rang with an air of truth to us. And so it did with me. So after mine there, and then after Fouke Monster, the very next year, you had Momo, which is Missouri Monster up there. And so it came out in 72 when I was about the 8th grade there. And so you had them, and it seemed like the 70s were really, really good. And then, like I said, then 85 when I had mine there. And then I started hearing more and more sightings. This year has been kind of strange. Everything has been more vocalizations. Haven't had about as many people having the sightings that they do on normal years. But based on what I'm getting on my camera here, like I said, getting running there, I got a bunch of pictures here the last couple of months of Bigfoot. I got one walking by my camera. That's probably the ugliest Bigfoot I've ever seen in my life. I got one yesterday that's probably 2.5 feet away from my dog on camera like this, and you can see his eyes just as clear as what you can see mine right there, And then I've got last year I got a picture of 2 baby white ones, look like twins, and then they're with looks to be a juvenile that's older than them for maybe the years class 4 that's brown, but the lights in my camera are so bright that the baby Bigfoot has actually got his fingers up there like this, trying to block the light from the camera as they walk by. So really, yeah. So last year was better for sightings. This year, but like I said, it was more for vocalizations. I don't know what the deal is, but like I said, I've got some cameras up there right now that I'll get some more pictures. I'm very fortunate to have that right there. Like I said, I think they trust me, especially in this one area right there. I've actually got some pictures of me walking by there. We mentioned the gun. I have a 45-70 rifle, which will shoot lengthwise through a daggum buffalo. I've got the rifle in my right hand walking through. There's a Bigfoot leaning around a tree, sitting there looking at me. I got the 45-70 in my right hand. And then the same place, then the next year we're sitting there, and we heard some babies doing the chatter and everything else like that. My buddy's with me up there. And so he's taking some pictures and looks, and then standing there about 10 foot just inside the wood line. It's like 4 of them, but one of them is just a really good sized male. He's not even the least bit worried. I mean, he's seeing that 45-70 rifle. So I think it depends on how they perceive it. They know I'm not there to hurt them, and so but it's really, really one of those things that I think it could depend on the individual Bigfoot. If I get one that's going to be a stinker, I'm probably going to be, I'm not going to try to shoot it, but I'm going, unless it messes with one of my family. But other than that, I might put a shot up into the air just to maybe stop it, which is what I've done at times to stop wolves, coyotes, dogs, other things, a bear. One time that fixing to charge, just to say, oh, hey, I've got your attention. Now it's time to leave. So, but it's really the most amazing thing I've ever done. And you become so. I actually gave up bass fishing. I used to be a very successful bass fisherman, still am, as far as I probably won $120,000 and now $125,000 in my life just bass fishing. But I gave it up just for big. I had one night on Lake Fork. I went into a pocket during about a 40 mile an hour wind. When I did, there happened to be a Bigfoot in that pocket. He started throwing limbs at me. And the velocity of those limbs that he was throwing at me was a whole lot more than what was cracking and going through with that wind. I finally said, it's time for me to get out of this pocket. So I chanced it with the waves and everything else and left. And that's around Sulphur Springs, Texas, down there. So it's and they're every state in the union but Hawaii. Hawaii, some people say now they have got them. They've seen them over there. Everything in Hawaii that is game oriented has been transferred over there for all the kings and all that other stuff like that. So they don't have their own natural wildlife. I've been there twice, and I've talked to different guides. But then I've also been to Alaska and talked to a lady up there who was I think a Tlingit Indian, and she told me about some of the experiences they'd had and stuff. At first, she wouldn't tell me because it was taboo for them to talk about. But I assured her I wasn't going to make fun of her or anything else like that. And boy, some of the stories she told me were just great, and I knew it. It was right there around the Kenai National Forest up there, so all those things. So you find out these things are all over the place. And New York, who would figure 20 miles outside New York City they'd have Bigfoot up there in the Adirondack Mountains, but they do. A lot of people, they've got them out there around Los Angeles. Maybe before the fires, maybe not so much now. Down around Houston, down there in all those big giant forests they've got, big as Houston is, and they show up in every single place, and that's what's really cool to see that Arkansas doesn't have a single town over 250,000 people, but Arkansas is a rural agrarian state, so to speak. Arkansas is full of them. If people knew how many Bigfoot were in Arkansas, they actually wouldn't go outside in their front yard, and I believe that with all my heart.
I went to the Diamond Crater State Park with my mom. That was a bucket list thing
Right.
for her. And I Googled it, and dadgum, the first thing that popped up, they had seen a Bigfoot a few months earlier. That was years ago.
Yep.
And so I was walking around. It was raining, and I was going down to the woods, and I was looking for tracks in the edge down there. I wasn't even looking for diamonds. And so we went across diagonally to the northeast.
Right.
Here's what people don't understand. A lot of but the people who are not lucky enough to get out and travel, there's a lot of nothing in this country. There's a lot of land. There's a lot of mountains. There's a lot of open prairies. Okay, Heather, we were in Du Bois, Wyoming. We went back this back road. We were back 9 miles, and we turned around. We're coming out. There was absolutely nothing. It was beautiful, and I was turning my video on. I don't know if y'all know it, but this place is Squatchy or something like that, just joking around. And I had been watching shows. I hadn't really told Heather. I may have told her that I'd seen one years ago. On the way out, we're stopped, and it's beautiful. And all of a sudden, we hear a scream, and it goes up. And it's the classic so either somebody's messing with us with a good set of lungs. And she said it was on her side of the truck. She snapped her head around. She said, "Did you hear that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did. What do you think it was?" And she looked at me. She said, "I've been watching too many of those shows with you." So whether it was or not, it had to have been somebody out there hiking and no vehicles around or anything for miles. So who knows? Oh, that's a good question right here for from Leanne to Amanda.
Yeah.
Do you keep a journal?
Yes and no. I am in the process of working on that, of getting all these reports and stuff that I'm taking, and putting them somewhere where they're going to be all together. So yes, I'm kind of in the process of working on that. So I have some that I've taken from the museum, some I've taken from my social medias, and even just walking around in town, because 99% of the time I've got some kind of Bigfoot gear on, either from the museum where I'm working or something, and people will be like, "Hey, Bigfoot, oh yeah, I like Bigfoot too," and then like I said, conversation starts up, and like imagine like you got there with working UPS all the time, Will. That's where some of the best stories come from, because I've taken reports of other cryptids just like in the Walmart, and so that's crazy.
I always tell people, if you want to know what's going on in a town, you go to the barber shop or talk to the mailman.
That's exactly right. And you hear that, and you need to write a book on that. I've actually got one book written called "Searching for the Unfindable: My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot." And I didn't intend on writing a book, but everybody's like, "Well, you've got to tell these stories, because if nothing else, you got to let everybody else know that they're out here." So I've actually got that one done. I'm actually right now working on book 2 called "Searching for the Unfindable: Finding the Impossible." When we actually have a place, me and my research partners, we can go to and actually expect truly the impossible to have a Bigfoot sighting nearly every time. Every time that we go, you can, I don't know if you can see it here, but here's all my phone. And like I said, I can just scroll through here and you can see about every picture I have on here has to do. I've got over 4,000 pictures has something to do with Bigfoot.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
it's so cool because, like I said, you can break it out. You know, when you've seen Bigfoot, that gives you, that's like having grandkids. You have the right to whip that phone out and show them pictures at any given time, whether they want to see them or not. But boy, you'd be surprised how many believers you can make up something.
Mhm.
When I first started doing this here, because I wanted to learn from people, and I figured out what better way than just to give them a place to talk, you know. And
That's right.
we went to a Bigfoot conference in Gatlinburg in 2020.
Yeah.
I saw evidence on people's phones that was undeniable. There are pictures out there. I saw a moneymaker walk off from a guy, and I'm like, "What do you got?" And he's like, he showed me some tracks on a road, and this thing was so heavy, it matched this clayish, silty clay material down in the, those tar and chip roads. They're kind of soft, but that thing was so heavy, it mashed a little bit down in there. So anyway, he got his contact information, and I've seen some pictures. Now I can tell the difference in AI, and some of these were before AI we got big, and it just leaves you flabbergasted, to use a big word. I mean, like, you're looking at this and like, why don't you post that and have everybody come to my house? No.
Yeah, I hear the same thing all the time. You know, it's like, I showed too many people this or whatever. They come, like you said, it's like, am I looking at, like I said, the golden ticket here? It says just sitting there on their phone. And, I kind of can't agree with them. I don't, like I said, I wouldn't want to, a lot of people are, which goes back to everything. A lot of people, they don't share it because they're so feared of the ridicule that comes along with it. Nobody wants to be the crazy person who saw Bigfoot, so then, sharing that out. And then even if it is a good picture, people are still going to come back at them and say, oh, that's just Photoshop, or, oh, that's just AI, or that's just a guy in a suit, So, you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. So I kind of sympathize with people just, holding on to it, not sharing.
Well, AI right now is really what's going to hurt me because I have so many pictures here. Here's that mama with the baby right there. Y'all, I don't know if y'all can see there or not. There's the baby over here on her shoulder. There she is walking away. And right there. But like I said, the pictures that I have right now without AI, and I am computer illiterate. By the time I die, I will never have worked that picture with AI. But people are going to say to me, "Oh, well, that's AI." No, it's not AI. I don't know nothing, about AI. Don't plan to. When I was born, I had the doctor. When I die, I had the undertaker, and I don't want to clutter up things after that. Well, the same way with that, I'll have this phone and pictures of Bigfoot, and it won't have no AI in the middle of it to do something like that. But it's
I've got several pictures on here, but I'm just going to show one. And I had Flat Rock on here, and he has them around his house in South Alabama. And he don't try to convince anybody. He just tries to document things. When I saw this picture, y'all, I'm going to show you the picture, and then I'm going to show you what immediately popped in my head. It's not a Bigfoot, but look at that handprint.
That's a big hand.
That's a big hand.
That is pretty big. That's crazy.
He said it was leaning down, looking into the door, and had its hand up there. Now, when I first saw that, this is what I thought of.
Oh, yeah.
See how the thumb is as far back, the human hand, of course, in the middle, and then you have the primate hand. And I don't know what that is on the right. It's some kind of recreation of, something from years ago. But look at it
and
again.
I'm assuming that's a 2x4 right there.
I would say that's, is that an 8-inch?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably 8 inch there.
It's got to be bigger than the 2x4.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be an 8 inch. And they are. I've got a picture of a Bigfoot hand that I found there where he had killed a deer right around a deer scrape. This hand is 14 inches from the heel of the hand to the end of the fingers, and then a couple of fingers are actually bent. So they're just really just massive. And then I've got picture tracks here of 22 inches as far as for footprint tracks. Those are big, those are big.
Yeah.
So
I just thought of it. I'm sorry.
No, I was doing a show one night, and Kane Michael was on, and it was just more or less a Halloween show, or we were just chit chatting or whatever, and several people were on. Well, Kane has a big guy, big guy.
Yeah,
on
yeah,
his
he
plate.
does. Yeah,
And he pulled out a foot cast. What was it, Will? Like 24 inches?
yeah, about
He said
20.
that
I think it's about 24. Yeah,
the cast weighed
he had.
60 pounds
Wow.
and it covered his body. I'm like, oh my God. But it there's so much evidence out there, but then you get people that come in and demand you share it with everybody for the sake of science, and everybody like, no, if they don't like you, they're not going to let you see this stuff.
Well, see, that's the thing right there. They sit there. I've had people tell me I need to demand I show my stuff, but then they call me an a-hole,
Yeah,
for not showing it before. Well, hey, you started that crap. I don't have to
yeah,
show it to anybody.
that's right.
I mean, you're gonna get more flies with me with sugar than you are with salt, as far
Exactly.
as that goes. I share everything that I get. I generally go on a show called um, World Bigfoot Radio and I share it with Duke. Duke's got a big, and so of course he's seen a lot of my stuff. He's actually seen the phones, got them on there, and I'll share it there on there first, just because I made a pact with him years ago that I would. But like I said, these people, oh, you're going to show that if nothing else. I remember another group at one time, and somebody said something about it. I said, well, I said, just haven't, got ready. I'm right. I've got this other book coming up. Like I said, I was going to put it in my book. Oh yeah, well, you're going to show this. We're going to kick you out of the group. So we just put your boots on and start kicking, because you're not going to tell me. You're not going to tell me when I'm going to have this stuff. So I always share. Don't charge anybody.
Well, and I believe that attitude right there might be why they never seen one to start with.
Well, exactly.
Right.
I mean, and that's the honest truth. They have that attitude like you owe them something.
Yep.
Folks, like I said, if you get to see anybody that's willing to risk their reputation, show somebody something about Bigfoot, even though we all know it's true, that's something to be respected, not something to be ridiculed or something not to be demanded. I don't know if this thing will show up or not, but there's crap, probably not. But I was going to try to show this 14-inch
so
hand.
hard.
There, you can kind of see it right there. That's a yardstick beside it, right there.
How long is that?
Yeah, so it's 14 inches for the hand. Yeah, for the hand, not the foot. The hand. I mean, so they're just what you showed there a while ago is incredible. Have I took out several skeptics and had their eyes opened? I certainly have, man. And I love that, Greg, because I don't go out with a bad attitude. I just say, well, if I can't prove it, so I'm not here to make you believe this right here. I said, but I want to share with you what I've got and open up another facet here that I think that when you get to doing this stuff, it'll open up something that you can do with other people. Got the group. I actually took my sister and her son and daughter, and then her twin daughters, and they were just skeptics. When they left, they wasn't a skeptic because there's one over there watching the twins over there behind the tree, sticking his head out like that. So made a believer out of her. I've made several more there. I had a couple lawyer I talked to in Texas there. He's from Dallas. He goes, there is no way in the world in that little monster, that little town Fouke can have a monster in it. And I had about 15 extra minutes. I said, would you give me the time to try to explain it to you? So he did. And so when we got through, I told him I used to be a shop steward there between UPS and Teamsters Union. He told me at the end, he goes, well, he said, I don't know what kind of shop steward you are. He said, but if you ever decide to become a lawyer, let me know. He said, because you're going to be mine. He said, that is incredible. You've made a believer out of me. And those guys are trained to catch somebody, somebody who's lying. They can see somebody who is, who's pulling their leg. And it was, so I've done that several times, and I love taking people out and making believers out of it. Even with tree structures. You sit there and you watch some of the tree structures down here. They twist all the limbs, and you have to figure out generally which one they did first, which one was second, and all. You take them and let them kind of undiagram them as they go. And they're like, oh my gosh,
that makes me think of a question.
Sure.
So on one of our hunting spots, where if you'll listen to Bigfoot Society, I didn't have anything happen from 1985 to like 2020. We lived on a farm, but nothing ever happened. We were 5 miles away from the original one. But anyway, we had a rock thrown at us, and that kind of got things going. Well, we've hunted that place since then. This is the 5th year. And we lose Amanda?
No, I'm here. I just turned off the camera for a second.
Oh, you're good. So, have you noticed my son's got a tree stand, and every year for 3 years, there's been a new break, but it's like this. It's 2 down.
Yep.
Now, I didn't think much about it, but every year there's a new one on that ridge. And this year, some other people got permission to hunt there, and they worked it out where they're going to be in a different area. Well, my son found another break, but it was down to the right, down that hill. He said, "You know what's funny about that? That's where their stand is."
Yeah.
So it's like that one was pointing. This is just not a fact. It's just what we're thinking. It was a new break pointing towards the stand, which is odd. But the ones that his stand was directly behind, like at 12 o'clock, there were two breaks like this,
Yep.
and on the same tree. And I'm wondering, everybody get their journals out. Have you seen anything consistent like that kind of communication? Maybe when you put a new camera up or you have something out that's not normal for them.
I have, as far as that goes, and I tend to think that Bigfoot tend to they communicate with those structures, and I've actually got some there that you can find them a mile away from each other, and you can tell by the style that it was built by the same Bigfoot. I've got one there I call Malcolm X because all his structures are X structures. I've got another I call Tim Trebow, and all his structures are tree bows that he's made like they're pinned, like a trap or something other like that. Then some of them we call the astronaut because he built some designs that are just they look like something that come off a Star Trek episode. So they do, but they're done like you said as a rule when somebody new comes in the area right there. Another thing I found that is after a while, if another Bigfoot comes in that's more dominant, he'll tear their structures down, and so that he can build his own structure. Now that's the truth. They build a lot of structures here around Fouke. And so you can see them from the road a lot of times. That's how I've found some of my best areas. Just happen to be looking through there and I'm like, surely not stop and go through. Of course, you're gonna get ticks and chiggers, but like I said, if it's a Bigfoot sighting, worth that right there. It's worth every penny of it.
I don't know about the chiggers, but yeah,
exactly right.
That's right. And when we talk about this stuff and you look at nature, I've hunted all my life, and for people in chat that don't know this, I watched this. This was like you said. You're probably talking about an alpha and then taking over an area. So I watched a small 6-pointer one time make a rub. He put all the work in, and he did his thing, and he scraped and everything. He did what he did. An 8-pointer came around and saw him and ran him off, and then he marked it with urine. Then a big 8 or 9-pointer come around, and they did all the work. And he went over and ran him off, and he took it over. And that's a natural progression of dominance there. And I never thought about that. One moving into an area. Now I have heard Coonbo talk about some moving in on top of his ones that are normally pretty docile and get along. They know each other and all that. And he's heard them fighting, actually screaming at each other and whatever. So that's why I like talking about this, because I look at the woods different now since I've been doing this. And I'm sure Amanda's sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, what are these guys talking about?"
Oh no, I look at that stuff all the time out in the woods. I'm looking, just like I'll see something like a tree break or like you said, a tree bow or anything. I was like, and I automatically start looking as like, is that natural? Is it not?
Right.
Could it? Couldn't? My wheels automatically start turning.
And listen, so I was listening to somebody one night, and a memory was jogged, and I remember as a kid, people were talking about, well, that tree right there was too tall for one to reach up, even if it was a 10-footer. I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. When we were kids, we would run up those trees ourselves and bend them over. We'd ride them down. So what if the young ones are going up? You've seen the monkeys on the ladders. They run up and ride that thing down. What if, now this is like, again, this is just an idea. What if the little ones are doing that for the bigger ones? Like, hey, bend this one over, go up there, ride it over, bring it down, and then they hook it under a limb or whatever. I just try to find, when people say that's impossible, I try to find ways it's possible. And us running around like monkeys in the woods when we were younger, we did stuff like that. So I don't know. There's a lot of things that I say I don't know too, but I love this type of talk back and forth. So I know I get excited, so I have to calm myself down a little bit. But
yeah, I'm over here. I got questions myself. I was like, oh yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
Now,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
something that was really fascinating, that one picture that you brought up of the handprint, and then it had the human, the primate, and then the reconstruction of it. That was really fascinating to see the joint, how it was so different, even though it was human-like, whatever it
Yep.
is it's trying to imitate. It was definitely doesn't move how our fingers move.
Right.
So that instantly made me think to, other attributes that these things present, besides, the classic, mid-tarsal break that everybody talks about. But the way that those fingers were bent, it made me think of some of the crazy reports that I've taken, and then I've heard in different podcasts and stuff. They talk about the spider crawl that these things have been known to do. Is that something that you've ever seen or witnessed personally, Will?
I sure have. I've actually got a picture of one there. That actually did the spider crawl to get in front of my camera to get a candy bar that we had baited in there. And so he had spider crawled. You could see where he, the handprints and stuff are impressions, not prints, but impressions, where he crawled, got behind this, I call it an altar. And whenever he did, he reached around with his hand and got this candy bar like that. And I've also seen them whenever they're down on the ground and they're trying to avoid you, actually get down, like I said, and just they get down like a hunter would do. If I see a deer standing out there and I know there's a chance that I might want to shoot him, I'm gonna get down on my hands and knees, and they'll do that. That spider crawl is a real thing. So and then too, about a Bigfoot's hand, y'all mentioned a while ago, he showed the pictures. Most Bigfoot hands that I've had pleasure enough to where I've got a thumbprint to it, the thumb is very, very short. I don't know if y'all can see about like that. Thumb's about, oh heck, half as big as my thumb. It just barely sticks out. Fingers are extremely long, but the thumb, it's almost like, go and look through it in an orangutan hand or a monkey hand. You'll see how short that thumb is. And most Bigfoot thumbs are the same way. They don't have that real long thumb like what we have. Because like I said, the ones I've seen, they wrap their hand around it like this rather than wrapping around like you. And so
you don't have the longer.
Yeah, so they don't necessarily need that longer thumb because they're doing most of their pulling. Just like that. As a former bodybuilder, I learned that then that whenever you're going to bench press, the more strength you have, if you have your hands like this right here, it's going to have all your fingers lined up, so you've got all your muscles working together. Whereas if you got it like this, you've got some that are opposable, and so you don't have all your strength the same way. And that sounds silly, but it's not. For as long as I bodybuilding, I learned that and powerlifting. Hey, that's true. So they do. The way they're built, and the most ever hand that I've got there, the handprint, it seems like that first finger is twisted some like that, and I can't show you good because I can't off the camera.
So Greg, you know Greg Howes, right? Well, he saw some prints one time that were going up a sandy bank there at Bankhead National Forest, and he said he thinks the feet are flexible more than one way. And I'm like, oh my God. Well, okay, so some of these tracks that we found in the edges of the creeks curved. And I think it's all about traction is what it looks like. I think they cup a little bit in traction. And also, if you're going to climb trees, you would kind of need that a flexible foot would help, I would think. And that changed the whole. I mean, I asked, I got a chance to ask some supposed experts one time about the foot, and the one I saw going up the hill was actually, instead of my feet, I had to go out like this up and over the weeds. Well, this thing was like a walking horse. It was just stepping right over the top and coming straight down. And I said that this thing was a pretty good incline there. Now, I would have been leaning over tripping because I've done it a bunch of times. But this thing had a straighter back. That flexible foot would probably help that be possible, I would think, let it so there's so much I get and Will, have you ever, and Amanda too, have you ever watched a walking horse competition where the rider sits he's standing and the how you win your money is the rider's head does not move.
With it bob,
move. That thing was walking up that hill, and it had that walking horse motion, not as exaggerated, and it was smooth as glass. And then that's the type of non-scientific stuff that comes to my head because I've actually seen that. And I'm wondering, because of the motion of how it walks, is that why people talk about the no head bob?
That's right. There is no head bob. Even when they're running, there's no head bob.
Yes. And
almost like a cross country skier.
and now I don't know. No, I don't know this. I'll ask Will. Um, so I've seen the smoothness this way, but is there a like we do? We don't realize it. But this is how my mind works. I'm in a factory one day, and I close one eye just to see if I'm moving side to side, and we are. You know what I mean? It's like we don't notice it because both eyes are open. And I actually tried to keep my thumb on a spot. I know I'm goofy, but I was thinking about the stride one day, and we actually go from side to side like this. Not much, but it is some. So, y'all, man, I could pick your brain for days, Will.
Like I said, that's some of those characteristics we talked about the good Lord gave them that being, 6 foot tall, we don't need, but being 10 foot tall, you do, and so it makes a big difference in, again, like I said, protective coloration. I can't change my color, but you can have them stand in the woods, or even there's some that when I go fishing, fish those bass on the nest, you can't hardly see them. You're looking right at them. That's some of those things that, like I said, we'll understand later, but until we get a body, but I don't necessarily need a body. Everybody, well, science won't acknowledge it until we get a body. Well, then there's some things, that you don't just need to know if that's the case. If you can't find that out without, having to kill one, then that's then you don't need to know. And that's the way I feel. But also being from the South, you don't kill something unless you can eat it.
Well, if somebody, this is what I've learned with anything. If somebody does not, if they're scared and they laugh it off and they don't want to believe, they're going to reject everything you show them.
That's exactly right.
Because if they have to admit that footprint is real, then that monster just moved a little closer to the house, so to speak. And when it becomes real, when you see them for the first time and it becomes real, that's not easy to deal with. I became a field hunter after that. I used to walk in before daylight, had a little $2 flashlight, and I'd come out. I was 12 years old. Heck, I'd stay out in the woods. After that happened, I became more of a field hunter, and I would get there right at daylight.
Yeah, I don't go in the woods before daylight, and I'm out before dark sets in. And because I've been out one time camping since I saw my first one, and that was in Oklahoma, and that was September 14th, 2015, and I saw one that night. I realized, hey, I'm just as good getting there at daylight. I've killed plenty of deer than I am by whenever I have to get there 2 hours ahead of time. Good, Michael. Well, so thank you for joining us here, but I appreciate that. Those that have to leave, folks, go ahead. I mean, I can talk your ears off, but I want you to know that what we're telling you is stuff we've experienced. We've all experienced something different. If something I share with y'all helps you get one tip, helps you get a sighting, then it's worth it to me. Because like I said, there's no $1 million picture, and all this stuff out there. It's not there. I've got some pictures that are really, really good. And like I said, that just as you said, everybody's like, well, you're not going to make them believe it. I mean, like Hawaii. I've been to Hawaii twice, loved it. And I'd like to see if he thinks that Bigfoot is in Hawaii. I don't think it is, but according to what I've heard and the people I've talked to, but you just never know about even the hogs that they have over there in the plantations.
There's so much. I mean, like we could do a dozen different types of shows. Like Amanda could tell us some of the wildest stories, or some of the similar. And you, with you doing this as long as you have, I would like to maybe end it right here for all of us, so we can get. And y'all, Amanda, thank you. I mean, if you're welcome anytime.
I'm down for the invite anytime. This has been great.
Well, you may get tired of it because I'm gonna we're gonna if you want to, and then she'll probably start her own channel. So and I think you need like 50 subs to go live. So we'll get that for you pretty quick.
Alrighty.
If you want to do that. Also,
I'd be down.
Stories. Yeah,
be down for that.
My book, folks. If you want to hear some stories, like I said, it's 449 pages, color pictures of my book called "Searching for the Unfindable: Quest for Arkansas Bigfoot." I give you all my stories as a rule, plus a lot that I picked up there on the road that were just too good not to share. And when you hear all these things, some of these other people, experienced people that never, have never met each other, and all it's coincidence. Marked on their radar. I think there are people there, Pyro, that thinks people are marked. I think they're called conduits, and I think Bigfoot recognizes either it's the way you carry yourself, or else the aura that you have actually. I've got actually friends that say, well, they communicate with each other some way and tell you that, yeah, you've seen a Bigfoot, but I do think you're marked. I think they let you know. And so I believe that with all my heart. Bigfoot, the place I've got there, one place, they recognize me. There's no doubt about it. And like I said, we got a big female that follows me and Stephen around there. They know we're there. Like I said, I do that call, the barred owl call. And my wife did it one day, and she actually got a picture of a mom and two babies standing over there where I'd had the sighting like the week before. So they do mark you. But there's more to it, folks, that we can't cover. But like I said, I do want you to know that I've told y'all the truth.
Let me ask y'all something. This is for both of you. So I sent off a DNA test, and it come back yesterday. And I have 270 something markers that go back to Neanderthal. And I'm wondering, this is throwing that out there. I'm wondering if, a lot of people, if you watch some of these documentaries and stuff, that could be a part of where they might have come from or whatever. Do y'all think that's possible, that it may be left over, or they may have intermingled with some other group? I mean, what are y'all's thoughts? I'm sure y'all both heard, opinions.
That's hard for me to say. People can say, Will, don't waste your money. We can look at you and tell that you're part of Neanderthal, so don't send your money to nobody. But, but still, that's things that we don't understand yet. And not being, a DNA analysis or anything else like that. Even the DNA sometimes comes back different, So, but I think anything's possible in here. And however the Lord there's a such thing. There's not evolution from one species to another, but evolution within a species, like there is with people and stuff like that. I think so. That right there, that's not against your biblical beliefs. And
because of these two, look at what Greg said.
Oh, hey, Greg, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that, man. If I've talked too much, y'all forgive me. Forgive me the Taylor Swift joke. Like I said, she was kidding, just like I was myself about being Neanderthal. But
Will, you're good. You know what my daddy said? He said, Roger's the only person I know out talk a Philco radio. I think I'm at my match tonight, but I love it.
Hey, they call me
too. We're
Yeah, they say I'm like Jimmy Hart, Mouth of the South, the old wrestling manager that they had around here that started in Memphis, Yeah, and I can give him a run for his money too. But hey, girl, if y'all have a chance, like I said, you have an opening, somebody cancels on you, and you just have to throw somebody in there, just give me a call. I'd be glad to be here. Like I said, I love to share this with people. I want you to know that what I've told you is real. Like I said, I've got the experience. The experience is real. I just happen to live in a real good area. And so therefore I tend to be lucky enough to have more sightings than what a lot. And I'm retired now. So since I've retired, well, my sightings have really, really gone up. So like I said, I'm glad to share that with you, and hopefully everybody. And so, guys, Billy, thank you so much, man. And I'll be glad to come back anytime you got a chance. And then, like I said, we'll pick right up. And hopefully I'll have my next book finished by the end of next month. So again, it'll be Searching for the Unfindable, Finding the Impossible. And I think you'll enjoy it too, because it's when you get to talk about these things and have the live models to quote to talk about and see what they do. I think it'll be enjoyable for everybody. So I thank you guys for having me on. Thank you for our service people, and to the veterans. Every one of us have got somebody in their family that we've lost to promote this right that we have to be Bigfoot hunters, to decide to go into the forest, and this right to raise our children to believe in this or not to believe. So again, I want to thank everybody that we've had service people and for their sacrifice that they gave, again, for our first responders and our doctors and nurses too, man. We live in a great country. I was worried for a while, but I think maybe we can get it turned. We finally got some people
in the right direction.
We got hit. Even some other people that didn't believe at first are like, golly, guys, you were right. And hopefully we've done that tonight with this Bigfoot show. So y'all holler back at me and I'll be glad to be here. It only takes just one phone call. So,
yes, sir. So, we're friends now, right?
I promise you, all the way. I'll be back anytime you need me, guys.
All right. So I'm gonna Bigfoot Lady, can you hang out for just a minute or
two?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Y'all hang on. Okay. Everybody, thank y'all. Thank you. I don't know what I've got playing here at the end. It's probably something. I know what it is. It's actually from Amanda's neck of the woods. So we'll see y'all later, and thank you for joining us.
Thank y'all.
Looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, let's see what we got.
Bigfoot caught on video.
What the crap?
What was that?
Did you see that?
Yes.
Holy crap.
What the heck was that?
That was on 2 feet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Thought I was seeing things, actually.
Oh my goodness. Please tell me we got that on audio, video.